15 seconds, so we'll let it. All right, let's call it to order. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Sharon and Tracy set. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Doug. Approval of the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Discussion, there was one, the Woodley Trail, it should be trailhead, is all. I'm doing that as just a second paragraph on that page. Because that's a parking lot, so it's a trailhead. It just said trail there, so it's kind of misleading to the drive. Just with that then. All those in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Public comment. Nancy, for sure. You come up to the podium, please.
Good morning. I'm Nancy Moe. I'm a board member with Friends of Gandy Dancer State Trail. And I'm here just to give you an update because it's been a little while. First of all, I just wanted to tell you that we're pleased to add 2 new youth ambassadors to our board. So these 2 students are from Polk County. So right here in this area.
Is it working?
We're looking forward to hearing from them and seeing what this future generation ideas have for future trail systems and ideas on what we can do with the Gandy. So we're looking forward to them being on board. Second, I just wanted to state that, we're not able to, the board is not able to make these meetings, partly because we either work or we live in northern Burnett County. So these meetings are sometimes difficult for us to make. We try to come here often and give you an update, but just because we're not here, I don't want you to assume that we're not interested in the comprehensive trail and what that means for the Gandy. So don't assume that we're not interested or that our not showing up is disinterest. We clearly are. So wanted to make that point. And lastly, the actual update for the trail. We had our annual meeting and we still have plans to do the same things that we did last year, which is Earth Day cleanup, the Gandy Dancer bingo. We're going to do some tree plantings and the full Gandy relay, which we did last year as well. We also are going to work with Wild River Conservancy on mitigating invasive species off the trail. So we're looking forward to that partnership. Any questions for me? All right.
No, but you should maybe think of Zoom too sometimes if you have to for an update, if somebody can't make it. I mean, at least just let us know.
Sure. Yeah, same problems though. I'm not the northern part of Burnett but we still have a lot of board members who actually work during these hours. So,
All right.
thanks, Kim.
Public comment then. Is there anyone? No, I don't see anybody. How about on the call in?
Take those that are online.
Yes.
Charlene, you want to provide public comment?
Yes, hi, thank you. So my name is Charlene and I live out in Sterling Township. I actually have 2 properties kind of back side by side, and the second one I just acquired in the last year. And so I received a letter recently from someone at the Polk County Forestry informing us about this trail that's going to be coming behind our property there and kind of crossing. It's on the Polk County property, crossing a little bit onto Sterling Township and then back onto Polk County property. So my question is, because I'm kind of new to this, having just acquired that property, is I'm trying to catch up by reading some of the trail plans and comprehensive things. And I just have some concerns that I want to raise because I see that the flags are already marked out there as far as where the kind of route it's going to take. And it's quite close to the second property that I acquired. And my question is whether there's some still time for that to be considered to be moved further west because of the dust, the noise. And there's also concerns out there with the lack of, law enforcement that comes out there. There are poaching issues already, which kind of puts a significant danger if people now can travel on an ATV with their poaching intentions, and the danger of shooting near the property there and the safety for the people living there. Also have concerns, also about the lack of enforcement, the trash, the beer cans, the party paraphernalia that we already find out in that area. And so creating that kind of, access, and how are you going to protect the citizens, particularly my two properties that butt up against that, against those kinds of things. And if there are concerns, where do I go to with that? And again, the biggest thing, just wondering, before the people come in to trailblaze, the portion behind my properties is not, it's not following a logging trail. It comes off a logging trail and then blazes. So my question is, can it blaze further to the west, where it's actually prettier terrain and kind of more diversity in the landscape anyway, which would be more enjoyable for an ATV rider, because I enjoy riding ATVs myself. And that giving them the distance for the dust, the noise, and the lack of enforcement out there to keep the properties safe. So those are some of my questions that I have, if it's not too late, having come into this late as a new property owner in that particular portion.
Can you give us your last name and
Sure.
do you have like the property ID number or something? That I didn't think there was private property up there.
I don't. I don't have it right in front of me. My name is Charlene Princeton. And so my property, the address of it is 2841 and 2851. I guess I don't know if I want to give my whole address out there on public here, but I don't have the ID number. It's on
Okay.
30. But it butts right up to it. In fact, when I see the trail that was sent in the map, it looks like they kind of were blazing and kind of turned in toward the property and then saw the cabin there and moved out, kind of circled back. But so it seems like there's probably flexibility in where the trail goes. So if it's not like set in stone yet, I think I'm the only two permanent properties that are, butting up to it. So is it possible to speak with the people that are making that portion?
Well, yeah, we'll keep that in mind. Okay. Thank you.
Who would I contact? I mean, who's my contact?
Mark,
My number should be on that letter.
the number's on the letter you received?
Right, and I think are you the one that I spoke to then, who told me to come to this meeting? So I'm trying to do what I can.
Yep. That's just to let all of us know too, I guess. So that helps.
Yeah, so if you didn't realize, yeah, there are two permanent properties there. So I know a lot of it's hunting cabins out there, but these are two permanent properties. That's where we live and want to be done, as undisturbed as we can, so that we don't disturb them, those that are trying to have recreation. There's 1,400 acres back there. So I'm just wondering if it can shove back a few, some yards.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any more of that online?
Any others wishing to provide public comment? Raise your hand in the within the Zoom platform.
Got a button that says raise your hand. What's on the new part? I guess I don't know. I guess I'll have to get on there.
Or provide a comment in the chat box.
None? We don't have anybody upstairs either, do we? Nobody knows, okay. Nobody hit any of the lines? Okay. All right, then we'll close public hearing. Public comments, excuse me. Number 5, that disclosure, whenever it comes up. And number 6, Amy is here. I know she wanted to speak.
Sure, thank you.
Come on up.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm just
State your name
Oh,
for the
sorry.
audience, please.
Amy Middleton, Polk County Supervisor, District 10.
Thank you.
Also the chair of the PTAG committee. And I've had a little chance to kind of noodle the wrap up of our comprehensive management plan, the finalizing of that, watching the process go from you guys to Gen Gov to the county government. And I just wanted to kind of share some thoughts that I had. And it's interesting timing that we had some public comments about what I'm going to speak about. So as you know, the trail plan had public comments, mapping, deep dives, focus groups, conversations, lots of public input in that front piece. And then the consultants took that information and put together what ended up being this, our comprehensive trail management plan. And I think what we should have done, this is Monday morning quarterbacking, but I'm saying this because what we got to do is get our process for these upcoming feasibilities dialed in. And I think the phone calls that I've gotten and the feedback that I've gotten is that we should have put one more step in that process of public comments. So we got the public comments. We heard back from the consultants on what they heard. So they pulled everything together. And then we should have gone back to the public and said, this is what we think we heard you say. Is that true? And essentially, I guess in the past, we would have called that a public hearing. It could be another step in our planning process. It could have been a public hearing. But instead, kind of how we did it was we embedded our parks line item in our 2022 budget. And I get we were jamming to get to budget. We had a deadline and we were trying to get our budget. But the public doesn't get that if they want to comment on a Sterling ATV trail location, a Stour parking lot, or a bike trailhead, that they should come to a budget hearing. It's just too esoteric. And I think either PTAG or this committee, preferably, obviously, it should be here, should have one more step in that process. So when we do these feasibility studies, and what we should have done here is we should have had a hearing, whether we call it a hearing or whatever, but we should have said, here's our draft, check it out. What do you say? And do you like page 10? Whatever comments they had. And so at that point, we would have heard from this person in Sterling about the ATV location. We could have, tweaked it. We would have heard about the Stour parking lot, which is the one that I'm generating a lot of phone calls, which is the reason that I'm thinking through this process. So I just think that we can do better on that and not embed our public comment in a budget line item. So that's that piece. But then particularly within PTAG, we're obviously advisory to you guys. And we understand that when something comes from PTAG, it's going to get changed in GenGov. It could get changed in environmental services before it gets to the full board. But, and they accept that and they get that. But I think on the topic of this equestrian priority piece that got tweaked, the E5, item number 5 that got moved up. And I meant, it was so fast, everybody was sort of, I think, caught off guard. But the equestrian piece, the way that piece was, number 1 was, we don't want to have campgrounds. We don't need to build campgrounds, which was in the top kind of community vote getter. That's fine, because the campground is not full, I guess. So then the next couple ones were sort of planning stuff, but instead what we have is this E5, which was the parking lot piece that got moved all the way up to Stour. And so the PTAG members called me and said, well, we didn't really even talk about Stour. And PTAG didn't do Stour. It was sort of like PTAG is doing our track and Stour was on the legal track. And, we couldn't have influenced it. It wasn't anything that we were going to do. But then all of a sudden, this sort of low priority parking lot gets moved up. So what I'd love for you guys to consider and do is to put a pause on the parking lot just until we find out where we're at with the hearing so that we can save the money on that and bump that 80,000 up to the equestrian trails. It's another feasibility. Where are other places within the county that we can do equestrian riding? Because it's senseless for us to spend $80,000 on a huge parking lot that we may not need, because the parking lots that's there is plenty of space for people to get grandma out to go walk on the trail. We don't need more cars parking. I mean, I get the parking lot's good for cars and bikes and walkers, but we don't really need it. So I'm saying we should be frugal with that expenditure, pause it, and put it into something else like planning pieces that are up on that list. So ponder that public process for our future feasibilities, because these feasibility studies are going to be coming at you fast and furious in 2022. And the public process input piece of that, I want us to get, really dialed in. So that's what I have. Any questions, feel free to let me know. Thanks for your time.
Just go ahead, Brad. Yeah.
So I think, you want more public comment, but everybody in the county had the choice. They could have come here for public comment. The draft was out there. We all seen it long in advance. So anybody could have showed up and said, we don't like this. We don't like the parking lot. We think you should move the trail on the Stour over. So they had at least probably 2 or 3 opportunities to come to this committee and say that. They had at least 1 opportunity to go to general government and say that. And then they had the last opportunity to go to the county board to say that. And
Well, we didn't post
the
it.
parking lot was, I don't think the parking lot got I think every committee and the county board that it went to, this plan was approved unanimously. Here, general government and the county board. So you voted for the plan, just like everybody on
Right.
this committee and the general government, and it got sent out of your group to us. And some things got changed. Yes.
We didn't send out the Stour piece. We sent out our regular
But it was,
priorities.
the equestrian was one of the choices in there, and it got.
No, I totally see. But back on the plan didn't get posted for the public until deep into December. It wasn't out there that you could click on it and see it. It was only posted recently. So you're right. You're absolutely right. If we had posted that right out of the chute, then we would have, like, maybe it should have been posted in, I don't know, the end of October after it came out of Gen Gov, so people could have looked at it. Or maybe we posted along the way, but it wasn't posted in a timely manner that people could have come and looked at it.
This
and seen
wasn't
it.
posted before, it should have been posted before we had the budget, because this was in the budget.
Well, part of the thing is we were tweaking those numbers because we felt like we could come up
The
with
numbers
better
were off,
numbers.
correct.
Yeah, so we needed to get those numbers straight. So it was a jam, and it was super busy, and staff was doing the best they could. So I think, we needed another month, but we didn't have it. So,
We
but
know when it was posted. I mean,
I think Supervisor Milk is correct.
It was
like
after.
We were working with the
to
consultant.
get the numbers
Yeah,
for the bids and stuff. Yeah.
because they were using, more East Coast inflated
Yeah.
numbers.
Really inflated numbers.
yeah, and the consultant was, busy we were having a hard time getting stuff back from them in a as fast of a pace as we were going. So it just didn't get out to the public, because I felt strongly that we should have correct numbers. that
Yeah,
people
because some of
see.
them were way astronomical.
Yeah, I mean, the parking lot that we're talking about was 363 or whatever
Yeah.
it was, 43,000
That was 300
versus
something.
80. I mean, that's just,
Yeah.
it's just not accurate.
Yeah.
So you're right, Brad. That's where it kind of. So anyway. thanks,
Okay.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to follow up with something on that.
Oh, you're behind me, Hayden.
Do I need to go up there or? can I
You
do it?
probably should.
All right.
Keep doing it the same way.
Yeah, so Chris Nelson, the Supervisor District 4, Vice Chair, also of PTAG. Although I agree a lot with Amy, what she said, I do have concerns on the way it's presented. We are an advisory group. We have users of each group on our board. So I don't know how many user groups we had, but the administrator picked users. We had a 1.5 years of meetings. We were pretty, every month we had meetings. We were told all the time to bring it back to our user groups. So as an equestrian person, I brought back all these things to the equestrian people. And as they got developed, we had all those public meetings. I think the process went just fine. I've been on advisory committees before I was on the board, and these advisory groups work well, that first year or so you're doing it and everyone's involved. But it just seems ironic again to me that after, we make the recommendations, we develop the plan, we send it to you guys, there's a group out there now that doesn't like. And so now, again, let's attack the process, right? There was nothing wrong with the process. Everyone knew what we were doing. Each user group approved their thing. And now we have one user group, again, attacking another user group. That's what it seems like. And I use the trail, that trail down there in Wanderoos. I went to the trail twice in the fall and rode, and we had to park on the roads. We had to park in the ditches. Clearly it was an issue. The parking lot, there is a small parking lot there, but you can't turn around. And even if we'd back our trailers in the parking lot, it would have blocked the parking lot. The area down there is just a flat area. I think it's a great spot for the parking lot. Snowmobilers, equestrian people now can get in and out of there with their trailers. More people can use it. There'd be no reason in the world to stop the project. So, and I just hope PTAG doesn't become too political. Right now, there's no organizations involved in it. It's just users. And I'm concerned even with our agenda that's out this month, that this agenda is becoming political again. And I've kind of tried to, I was kind of the guy there to try to, I felt like keep it from not being political. And I asked you guys to really look at the effectiveness of PTAG going forward. Brad, I, and Doug sat on advisory committee for 2 years for the shoreline ordinance, maybe close to 3. And it went on way too long, you know, and these advisory groups are good. You bring them in, you have them do a job, but I don't think it's a good idea to just make stuff up to have on our agenda. And now on our agenda this month, I'd ask you guys all look at it. I'm very concerned. PTAG is now trying to determine if they think there should be different people on the group. And just stay tuned. I'm concerned about PTAG, and I'm concerned about these outside groups. Reference the Gandy Dancer. They had their annual meeting. If you go online and look at it, the Gandy Dancer group is publicly saying we want to be on PTAG. The Gandy Dancer group is lobbying for supervisors to elect or unelect. The Gandy Dancer at their annual meeting said we need to give Amy Middleton more power. And it's videoed. You can watch it. And she's the only friend of the Gandy. And we need to get rid of the other supervisors. So I'm very concerned that the comments at their annual meeting says the Gandy wants to be on the trail. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Give you guys more of the other side.
All right. Okay.
Can I just talk about? I don't think our agenda, I think that our agenda is not exactly the way Chris is representing. It was really just to touch base on whose terms are up, who's interested in staying on, and to refresh everyone's memory that they're supposed to be looping back with their user groups. You know, that the structure of PTAG is to go back to their particular user groups and to refresh people's memory about that. So it was
It
nothing
says
that
discussion and action.
we're not taking over.
It says discussion and action. Just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that.
All right.
Yeah.
What's the facilitator will handle that? What's your Bob?
Action has been struck.
Okay. All
on
right. All right, we'll let that one go. Any other, is there any supervisors online? Besides Doug, committee, so you can speak of whatever. So,
or Justin.
he doesn't really come. He out there? Not till we get to the farming stuff. Remember, he don't come.
Could be a farm.
He's
There's a
got
horse on it.
a horse
Could be
on
a
it. All right.
farm.
Can I ask a question
Oh,
about this topic?
no. It's not agenda.
Oh,
It's
okay.
It's all public, not unless it's on here somewhere else.
Okay,
If we get to a trail deal, then you can. How's
Okay.
that?
sounds good. It will fit there.
But not under where we're at.
Okay.
All right. Let's dive into number 7. Do we have a presentation for this, or how is this came about?
So this basically came about from a conversation with Chad and Vince. and the village of Clayton and myself and Cedar Corp, who the village has working with them. And it's in regards to the ARPA money. They have a huge project concerning their drinking water. It is undrinkable at this time. And the residents are paying for water they can't drink, and so they're asking the county for some help, possibly through the ARPA funds, if possible. They do have some matching grants. And this was the committee to bring it to. So that's why we are here. Seth is either online.
He's
Okay.
unmuted on online.
Is that mine?
So he would probably be able to do a
Sure.
broader presentation, or not, in so many words, kind of what they're looking at, where things are at this point. So that would probably be the direction.
Tigolis is him. Now Chad, do you know, and everybody, we do resolution 4621 that we passed, did we not? Paragraphs.
Yeah, I think, I don't believe this one passed though. This is the county centric resolution.
Yeah,
I don't think that one passed. Let me double check, but
double check.
as I recall, it didn't pass.
I got it.
4621.
4621 from
Okay.
September 21st.
Yeah, I specifically asked about that one the other day and I think I was told it didn't pass.
Well, let's hear the presentation then, if he's ready to give us what they're thinking. Is he online to do that for us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Good morning. Sorry, I'm actually over in Appleton right now, so I'm in my hotel room. So I apologize for not being there in person. Yeah, let me, if I may, let me step back just for a second and explain the situation. And Clayton is not the only community dealing with this, both, I believe, within your county and within the state. About every 9 years, DNR, under direction from EPA, comes through and does an additional sampling of wells looking for chemicals. One of those is manganese. So this had not been sampled for 9 years per those rules. It happened last year. Clayton has 2 wells, one on either side of the community, with the water tower kind of in the middle, if you will. And what happens is wells, especially well number 2, which is the older well in town, the water is pumped out of the ground, travels through the community, water is pulled off of that line as it heads to the tower. So it's not 2 wells pumping to the tower and then out. It's actually running to the tower. Lines are coming, laterals are coming off of it. Then it goes to the tower as needed. So the challenge that Clayton has is, due to the manganese being high, they have to figure out how to address that issue at the 2 well heads versus the tower, which means it's costly. So where things stand currently is this. Over the last 6 to 8 months, there's been a series of sampling that's being done by DNR. When they first sampled well number 2, which is the smaller and older well, had issues in it relative to manganese. And the idea was they would shut that down, use well number 3, which is their larger and newer well, and only turn on well number 2 in case of an emergency, because well 3 can really cover the community as it is today. A few months after that occurred, well 3's number started to go up. And I'm not an actual engineer. We have engineers working on this, but I'm the point person. So basically it's 300 parts. It's either million or billion. I can't remember, but 300 is the magic number. These wells were coming in at about 600 or so. Well number 3 started to increase. Well number 2 also went up. So they had a situation where they had a notice per DNR, all residents within the community, that if you're over the age of 55 or under the age of 5, you cannot drink the water or should not drink the water. So the village put in water treatment at Village Hall, so anybody can come in and get clean filtered water. And then they started the process to figure out what needs to be done to address the issue. In particular, how they can fund this type of investment. There are multiple programs out there for funding. They all have their own requirements and restrictions, and I'll just say hurdles that one has to get over in order to go after that funding. The biggest one was what's called community development block grants. Those are grants. They can be up to $1 million on a project, but the community has to be low, moderate income. The village itself is low, moderate income, but the sanitary district covers the homes around Lake Magner. And we actually had to go out and do a survey. We had to do 2 rounds of mailings and door to door to have individuals fill out a survey stating what their family income was or is. As a result of that survey, that sanitary district is not low, moderate income. So that autumn, and we just learned this about 2 weeks ago. So that means that they cannot go after that $1 million grant. So what's left for the community would be to go after low interest loans, either through the federal government or through the state's Safe Drinking Water Fund. Now, we don't know yet what the solution is to resolving the manganese issue. So the other thing that was going on while we were surveying was a full-blown study of the situation. And we were hoping to have those numbers for this morning, but the report hasn't come in yet. I keep checking my email to see. This manganese issue can be caused in 1 or 2 ways: biological or geological. If it's biological, more than likely we'll be able to treat it with chemicals and then treat it on an ongoing process, which, if that's the case, we're talking, probably $20,000 or $30,000 a year and $100,000 up front, and we're done, which is much more manageable for the village of Clayton and their sanitary district. And we just treat every year and hopefully things go along. If it's geological, then that moves us to a next level of having to study the well and more than likely put in filtration at the wellheads to the cost of $3 to $4 million, $2 million each, roughly, to put in the filtration system. Very expensive. The village would have to borrow. The village's borrowing capacity due to state rules and regs is $800,000. You can see the rub. So we're not asking for anything today. We're just updating you on what's going on. I know a letter had gone out, I believe, to all the supervisors previously. I would say that was premature because we're still trying to figure out the actual cause and then figure out the solution so that we have a better sense of the numbers and then figure out how we can go after fixing the problem. If we or the village has to put in filtration based on the estimates to do that, we would only be doing 1 well. And that would probably be well 3, which is again the newer and larger well, which is the cheaper out of the 2. But we're probably still looking at $1.5 million to $2 million type of number. Again, that's just a rough range at this point. So where we are is we're waiting for the study to come back to tell us if it's geological or biological. Then depending on what that answer is, Cedar Corporation as hired engineer, we will then go out and work with providers to come up with a cost estimate and a solution to resolve the issue. So then we can sit down and actually look at the true numbers and then hopefully go after some of the state and or federal dollars that may be out there to help the community. I mean, even at a 1% loan, which is the federal and state money, that's still a large chunk for the sanitary district and the ratepayers to digest over a 20-year period. We don't have all the numbers yet on that, of course. The other thing I'm going to mention is the village did receive ARPA funds. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it was around $54,000. They're using those funds, some of those funds right now, to cover the studies that are occurring, to study the survey work that needed to be done to see if they could go after that grant program. So they're putting their ARPA money towards the project right now. And they've spent about, I would say about $35,000 to $40,000 so far. If you look at the survey work and then the work that's going on right now with a third-party firm to hopefully figure out exactly what needs to be done to address the issue. That was a lot. I apologize, but hopefully that made some sense. and I can hopefully answer any questions if you might have them.
What would be the cost if each house had to put a filter system in? Do they have that cheaper than the 2 million?
You know, that's a very good question. I do not know the answer to that.
Okay.
We can find that. I mean, obviously the village put filtration system in the village hall, so we could get what that number is, and you just have to multiply that out. I'm not really sure. I don't have a filtration system at my house, so I'm not sure what that would be, but we can look into that.
Okay. Anyone else? Any questions?
I would just agree that the letter was premature from the city.
Yeah.
Like a lot premature, because as someone who lives in the country, it cost me $35, $40 a month to treat my water. And so while I feel bad, I flip that bill every month. And so do thousands of other residents in Polk County that live in rural Polk County with a private well. And so I guess I'm struggling with that. When the letter said, you know, it was going to take $2 a quarter off, you know, they were looking at $16 a quarter, and it cost me, you know, $35, $40 a month to treat my water. So it's yeah, I would agree with that. The letter was way too early.
Yeah, and if I may, I do agree with that. Not to downplay, you know, people that are on fixed incomes and all of a sudden there's a jump up, right? Just set that aside for a second. I personally feel, and we work with a lot of communities around the state, right? We work for about 90 communities as their extended staff. What the bigger issue is going to be, I believe, is the borrowing capacity to fix the solution due to debt limits and the situation where Clayton is as a village with, you know, 750 people. So that might be the bigger issue, is they might not even be able to borrow enough to even install anything. Again, we have to play that out and see where that falls. So the other unfortunate just bad luck is the village was going through a water rate increase when this all happened. So the water rates did go up recently. I do not have that number off the top of my head. I apologize. They did go up, and at the same time they went up, we had the manganese issue. And if I didn't mention this before, DNR requires that everybody gets a letter saying not to drink the water. So you can imagine as an individual, you see your rate goes up, even if it goes up 50 cents, and then you get a letter the next day or a week later that tells you not to drink the water whose rates just went up. That's nobody's fault. That's just unfortunate. So you can imagine how the board felt about that when they were receiving phone calls. So anyway, there's a lot still to be figured out as the point, but it is something that is going to impact this village significantly. We just created a new tax increment finance district. The village was actually talking with a senior housing builder who was interested in building some units in Clayton. That's the first time in quite a while. And that project got put on hold, obviously, once that do not drink water for people over 55 came out. So it's having a ripple effect that we need to address.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
How long before the letter went out did they know about these magnesium numbers? I mean, did they just go up all of a sudden, or have they been steadily going up, or you know?
So-
they hadn't tested it for a long time.
So DNR came through and tested like they do. They found the manganese and immediately turned around within, I think it was a 24, 48 hours, send a letter to Sheldon, who's the public works director, said you're over the capacity. This letter needs to go out within 24 hours or you're in violation of state and federal law. So the letter went out.
How long had it been since they'd been tested?
Well, it goes, the letter goes out quarterly depending on where the manganese levels are. So, and they keep going up and down. They're fluctuating all over the place. So one quarter they go out because the wells are over. The next quarter they didn't go out because we shut one of the wells down. They're pulling the sample. They pulled the samples originally at the tower once everything mixed. Now they're pulling them from the well heads. So there are literally quarters where no letter goes out, and then there are quarters where a letter does go out. It's very confusing. And DNR states that this is an issue with the drinking water, that you should not drink it, but then they state there is no enforcement action, meaning DNR is not saying to the village, you have to fix the issue. But they're telling the village, you have to tell all your residents not to drink the water because it can cause cancer. It's very odd and very confusing. And the best that we can determine at this point is this is happening because EPA at the federal level is in the process of coming out with new rules for manganese that'll make it an enforceable water issue.
Wouldn't that be like, say a tornado went through and wrecked the town? You got FEMA money for it. This is the same thing. They can't drink the water. Isn't there emergency money for this?
Because it's not
That's considered an emergency.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's a really good point because, again, I'm not EPA, this is our understanding. Because EPA has not made this an enforceable cleanup contaminant, there's no emergency money from the federal government to do anything. We've also been talking to our legislators in Madison saying this is a big issue, and it ties into all the other well issues with PFAS and everything else happening around the state and the country. We're not sure where that's going to fall. To show you how odd this is, DNR Wisconsin has a fund called Safe Drinking Water, and you can apply as a community for certain contaminants to address. Manganese isn't even on that list, although they've notified 12 communities across the state they have a manganese issue. It's very disjointed at this point to try to figure out what's going on, what the rules are, et cetera. But we do know this, we have to keep sending these letters out. If the manganese gets to a certain number, and I believe it's over 1,000 parts, then the letter goes out that tells everybody, no matter your age, to stop drinking the water. We haven't gotten there yet. We've come very close. 900 and some odd parts per million.
So I think you said they test for this every 8 or 9 years.
Unless they find it, and then if they find it, they test quarterly to make sure it goes away.
Right. So, but I mean, the residents could have been drinking this water in the scheme of things for 7 years and no one would have known. Because it wasn't tested for.
You are correct. Yep.
One concern I have is, we have ARPA funds, but we're having to borrow as a county to be able to do some of the things that we have already budgeted for. So we're being asked to give away ARPA funds, which
And we borrow money.
then we borrow it.
Yeah.
So in the long run, somebody's borrowing it. And in this case, the whole county would be paying for it. And so I have concerns about that because every town, village, and city has things that are important to them. And so how do we prioritize where those funds go is a real question.
I don't envy you. You're in a tough situation. Again, I work for many communities across the state. Everybody has shortages. Everybody's looking to ARPA funds to fill them. So.
All right. Any other questions? If not, well, thank you very much for the update then.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And we'll be back in touch once we get more information.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Just on a side note, did you look this up?
It was withdrawn in September.
It was withdrawn. Should we put that back on? Maybe I'll ask you afterwards, huh? All right, number 8. Mark, you're up. Hopefully we're not logging in Sterling.
Good morning. I handed out a timber sale packet for your information. Nothing we need to do today. Handed it out just from the standpoint of come March 16th, I'll be back here to have the bids approved, et cetera. I'll have a bid sheet ready, et cetera. In case you guys get questions, et cetera. Here's the bid packet that's going to go out. either later today, early tomorrow morning. Some of the highlights, I guess, the total minimum appraised value would be $72,904.70. In the bidding process, I'm expecting it to be above that, assuming all the sales sell. On the books today, we have 12 sales already sold for $202,000. So this will put us in the ballpark of, we hover right around that 325,000 on the books at any given time. As you can see from the cover page here, that's kind of a summary of what's being offered for sale. With that, are there any questions on this or comments prior to sending it out?
Is price of lumber, logs up, down, same?
So the price of logs has remained pretty stable over the years, last 10 years, et cetera. What is kind of difficult right now would be the pulpwood, and it's still an impact of, this Verso mill that went down 2.5 years ago. And if you look at the front page here, and it's like, well, that's where we're making kind of the money, is on the red oak, the logs, the jack pine, bolts, et cetera. The pulpwood remains down. So.
Yeah, with the price so high, it's funny, it's this
Yeah,
part is.
I've
we're
been
not
trying to
getting
figure
that,
out who's making the money. It certainly isn't the landowners, the loggers, et cetera. So I think it's a combination of the mills and the speculators. So, 2 years ago, a 2x4 was $2.50. During COVID, it went up to 10. Right now it's $7-8. Weird things happen during COVID. I can't explain it. Et cetera. So
Do we, when we sell firewood to an individual, do we allow like four-wheelers, skid steers, whatever in to get it out?
no. Into liability issues. So it's hand cutting. The tree's got to be down and dead. You got to carry it to their pickup. Does that right on the firewood. As opposed to a logger, they've got insurance, they've been FISTA trained, et cetera. So.
It's her fault, by the way. Anybody know how to shut it off?
Oh, good one.
So
That's even better.
moving on to the second agenda item.
Hold it, we're going to Chipmunk City.
I struggle sometimes
I
with
know,
naming the sales, so.
There was some of them on, but I see we're in Sterling in a few spots, huh? So maybe you'll tell us about that from the public comment, if we're close to that later.
Yeah.
Not, we'll do it on the next one
So.
to address that.
Yeah, I'll get to it. I'll have a map up here and I can kind of point to
Let's
it.
address that, yeah, the next one. We'll make sure that's on our agenda.
So moving on to the
Around
second.
the trail part, yeah.
So moving on to the second agenda item, just so everyone's on the same page, what's going on here. Polk County, Rod and I went to the Burnett County Natural Resource Committee meeting. We had, 2 requests for their consideration. Number one, we wanted to tie in to their existing ATV trail network. And the second item was a request that's kind of contrary to their policy. The road we want to tie into Meadman Meadows, you bump it up. So this is Meadman Meadows Fire Lane, this purple line right here. And their policy states that it's only open September 15th through November 15th. Well, we're trying to build the trail system here. Zoom in. Next. We're trying to build a trail system to create the loop, et cetera. That's open June 1st through December 1st. So that's our request, is to get permission to operate this portion of the trail, Meadman Fire Lane. We agreed to maintain it, et cetera. They had some concerns associated with the town of Anderson, the town just north of Sterling. with their policies, et cetera. They're trying to do their due diligence for a township within Burnett County and get any of their concerns before they made a final decision. The town of Anderson they have it on their agenda, March 8th at the town board meeting. They will report back. The Burnett County Natural Resource Committee, where they'll make a final decision on March 10th. Any question? That's kind of the detail.
It's gravel and stuff too, though, isn't it, the road? Because I see you can only drive them on tarred roads and stuff, so
Yeah,
the chances
that's-
aren't very great.
In the bigger picture, that is part of
Yeah.
the question is their policy states that ATVs, their routes are designated on blacktop roads only. So their concern is there's a township road that goes north here that is not blacktop.
Yeah.
Concerns were roads, temporary roads that go off Meaton Fire Lane that are not open to ATVs. How they're going to handle that associated, well, we can't gate this because this is open to trucks also. And enforcement, et cetera, were all things they considered. If you could go back to that one map. I have to go back to my notes, but per the public comment, I believe Charlene made the comment up in this corner right there. So basically I sent out a letter with the intent of letting them know that heavy equipment was going to be in the area. If you got concerns, let me know. Same thing I do with logging.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I sent out letters to any where we're getting close.
That's not the high use area, that's just the regular trail, isn't it?
Yeah, so she either called me or I'll go back to the notes and be a little proactive. Give her okay. So,
all right.
Any questions?
So do we have, assuming Burnett County and Anderson says no, we have a way to get around there?
Yeah, so basically if the town of Anderson says no, this portion of the ATV loop will have to be stalled. We get back to the loop either by way of this and 300. So these are all open routes. So we're not dead ending. Do you have anything to add on the meeting, Rod? No, we're waiting on them. Okay. All right, thank you.
So that would be in our March meeting. Yep, okay. All right. Thank you. So you'll have that almost the same time as your logging stuff too then, huh?
No,
Nope.
those are
separate-
March 16th.
Oh, the bids are the 16th.
Yeah, bids close
Okay.
at
So this is just being sent out. I'll collect all the bids. I'll provide
That's
a
the
summary
second
sheet
meeting,
and
okay.
then you'll approve it.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Come on up, Chad. We're ready for you.
Morning. You should, everyone has a copy of that summary in their packet, I believe. That's what I'll reference.
Yep.
So the prices that the committee set last month were inserted into the loss figures that we spent 2021 obtaining. And you see the results of those there. For the deer ones, shooting permit compliance has been evaluated and found to meet on all of those, and the other ones meet eligibility requirements. Thus, my recommendation for the 6 claims in front of you is approved. Any questions individually?
Some of these got shooting tags for whatever it might be, I'm gonna assume, or not, or.
The 2 deer claims both have shooting permits, correct? The other have various different abatement recommendations. Actually, the goose claims, there was no shooting permit, but there's probably going to be fencing in the future on those. The bear ones, one of those were a shooting permit and the other were trapping. You see, we got some multiple claimants, different counties. That's why some of those claim numbers are evened out there. Like the Crosby claim, 9,300 of his max claim is in Burnett County. And actually, Mr. Renstrom also has losses in Barron County. So that's why the deductibles aren't necessarily a straight 500. They're pretty straightforward this year. Nothing sticks out. Nothing needs the committee to act on in denial. They're all pretty standard. In fact, our lowest claim totals in 6 years, I guess, numbers wise, not value wise, but 6 claims is probably the lowest Polk County's had in decades.
Yeah, it's usually 2 or 3 pages long, minimum. All right. Any other questions? I think we can approve them all at once.
I'll make a motion, we approve the wildlife damage claims.
Okay, is there a second, Shin? Any other question? Hearing none, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Doug, how about Jason?
Aye.
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 Gotta let you vote. All right, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, you have originals in front of you.
Sign, yeah.
Yeah.
Justin has a
How
question.
many acres does it include?
Fun has it.
All right, I didn't hear the question.
How many acres are involved in some of these? I think some, of them, they're all.
It doesn't say it.
No, if he has a specific, I'd have to look at the claim form has the appraised acreage and the loss acreage.
All right, I was just curious how many acres total it was, but that's fine. Not a big deal.
Okay. This is A and B. What's B?
Would you
That's,
like me to remain for B here?
Stick around to the
You bet.
voting.
Yep.
I'll let you begin it, but I can fill in any blanks, where it is, how it got to where it is, and
Yeah, let's get that while he's here. Yep. and I'll
Yep, so
keep signing.
we're ready to roll on that then, Kim? I mean, you're
I'm just signing. I'm listening. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So I had the clerk's office send out Assembly Bill 149. Senate Bill 63 is the same, and realistically, the biggest thing is it moves what we're doing today and 2 months ago. It takes it away from us at the county level to it takes the administration of it away and moves it to Madison. I mean, it does some other things. I haven't talked to anybody who's against what it does, other than takes it in Polk County out of this room in front of this committee and puts it in front of somebody's desk in Madison. And I just found out at 9 o'clock last night, it's probably dead this session. Well, it passed the assembly. There's nothing on the calendar coming to the Senate, and well, they got 4 weeks of session left, so it's probably dead this session. But to me, I think, we want that back here. For one thing, we do it for nothing. We know very well that if the state takes it over, they're going to hire a number of people to do it, and then also it takes, and Chad, you'll know this, but I think I'm right. I mean, here we have a $500 deductible today for anybody, and it would take that to 25% of it, but then it takes the cap off too. So in this case,
to my knowledge, the bill does not have a change in deductible, only in max claim.
because I think if you read it, it talks about 25% deductible.
Well, then that was added maybe in the last public hearing, but otherwise that was not in the original language.
So, okay.
And the deductible would not change, only the max claim. So we had a max claim this year. It would have been $500 deductible and 80% payment over 5,000. So it would have exceeded 10,000 in that case.
Well, so it, yeah, because I'm only getting 80% anyway, right?
Over 5,000.
Over 5,000.
You're getting 100% up to 5 minus 500. This bill came about in 1999. It was in the committee in 2000. Well, March of 2000, everything changed. This bill dropped when the session ended. It got re-brought up. It's exactly where you said it is now, sitting there, not knowing if action will occur or not. It's had a public hearing in the assembly side, I believe, where there was no public opposition to the bill. And there was several groups there in favor of it. Yes, it would remove county involvement in the 70 of the 72 counties that participate. It would return full administration to the department. Remember, it is a department program right now. They promulgated the administrative code for it. They control the fund. But counties are the only entity that spend the money within that. And I guess we do submit a bill to a budget to the department. So it does, Polk County, it does cost to administer it. You have to pay me to be here. But your time here typically is not paid for. Yeah, it's collected into whatever your per diem is for today. Yeah. So it has been the way I just described it since 1983. Okay, when it was changed to have some county involvement because it was felt in those days that ag expertise existed at the county level and not within the department. Well, that probably has not changed. The department is not an agricultural entity. It's a natural resource regulatory agency. A lot of things have changed both at the county level and with how it's administered, put it that way. Today, about 12 counties administer it independently without USDA Wildlife Services administration. So that's one of the biggest changes.
So what are the advantages? What are the advantages?
Good question. And remember, I didn't write this bill and I'm not a spokesperson for it. If it happens, I'll deal with it the same way I deal with the program statutes today. One of the advantages was monetary. It was to reduce administrative expense. Right now, the county or the department reviews and approves 70 separate county budgets. Potentially, they get 70 times 4 quarters, 280 individual reimbursement requests. They have considerable administrative duties managing separate budgets for each county. It's one pot of funds, but it's done 70 different ways. So they what is it called? Is it the green sheet that they do financial reviews on, and the department has submitted that. So they tout an administrative savings by doing this. The other 4 or 5 provisions are directly related to how someone like me would engage with producers. It removes the cap. Bear traps would require monitor devices, which we've been moving to, anticipating this anyway. So we have about 90% use of those already on all traps. What was the other one? Payment for damage caused to access sites. It's already been done by me for 20 years. That's kind of a non-issue. So the other provisions don't have much opposition.
Do they help the claimants at all? Do they speed up the process? Do they make it more fair?
That's the other thing. The department is claiming about 1 to 2 months earlier payment. Right now, payment is received late May to early June. So, and that's because of this process going through counties. I submit the claims to the department. They individually audit all 70 counties' claims, and that process takes time. Counties are, you're an exception. You meet twice a month.
Some counties that I report to barely meet 4 to 6 times a year. So what we're forced to do is to, remember, I've done this in 7 different counties of the 70. So we have to get into those meetings when we can. Department wants these by March 1st. Sometimes that doesn't happen, delays claimants, payments later.
All right.
We just don't want to lose seeing you, Chad. That's
Yeah.
really what this
There
comes
you
down
go.
to.
Well, that's very nice, but as a note, I should mention you are going to miss seeing me. I did take a different role in October with the department. And this will be my last meeting in this capacity. I have to finish out last year because the replacement of me process has been slow, so we don't have a person to come behind me yet. But if things do not change, if these bills get flushed at the end of this session, and things don't change, you'll see somebody different next year,
So you went up the ladder,
so to speak.
Well, it's better than down the ladder.
But you shouldn't, it should be seamless. You shouldn't see any change in how things are done. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
All right.
Unless it passes, then we won't see anything.
If
If it passes, it'll be it'll be big changes.
But if it started in 99, it's just here again, it's just so.
2000, I meant
2000.
2019. I might have said,
2019, okay. I was gonna say
did I
otherwise.
say 09? I did. And that,
You said 99, you were like 22 years off, Chad.
So I just saw it fell off
No
somebody's
wonder he's
desk.
moving up
We
the
have it
ladder.
on tape.
it hasn't been chewed for 20 years now,
Okay.
about 2 to 3 years, but COVID made everything restart. It just got ignored, and rightfully so. It's a bill that doesn't impact large user groups in the state.
So is there any, can I say, portion of the state that has pushed it harder than another portion of the state? I mean,
Yes, of course. Yeah, and I don't know that it's portions, but counties. Some counties I go to, they're not as welcoming as this committee, and they're just like, get on with your business and move on because we have other things to do. Where they have almost no role in it except for the bare statutory requirements, which is price setting, claim approval. Permanent fences, by the way, if I would want to do one of those on a site, I would have to get approval here. We just haven't had one of those issues in the last 6 years. And the other one is budget, but we do the budget primarily behind the scenes with county administration. The budgets get approved by the department ahead of time. So we have budget meetings with them. And in the past, the county sat down and did that 20 years ago. Well, they don't really have that role anymore either.
Chad, this bill, if it passed, it would remove our portion of it, put it to the state, but does that still take away our control of setting prices and things like that, or no? That's
Yes.
different. So it affects that as well.
Yes.
yeah, we would never see anybody, whoever takes your job over, we would never see you again in theory.
The way I understand it, the department would contract solely with us. And we would do those 70 of those 72 counties.
But you would be the price setters then and all that initially, or?
And one of the problems, or one of the reasons I believe that some counties kind of said, hey, I don't like this, is there wasn't answers to the question you just had. They don't really know how price setting would be formed. They would deal with that process if the bill happened. And that's not the only one. There's a half dozen things that occur at the county level that they just have to find a mechanism for dealing with. Now, and remember, the price setting process it varies.
From north to south, all over 70 counties.
It's a cattle auction here, and in other places, I present them.
Brad.
Other places, I present the price sheet and they stamp it in 5 seconds. So it just varies, that process isn't as intense everywhere.
Just trust nobody.
We're always striving to pay the least per bushel in the county.
Trust nobody, them numbers came where?
And while that's typically been true, you were like equal with a couple of mine this year, so.
Yeah, Justin, you failed.
Yeah.
But it was difficult getting these signed when the day you're there to have them signed. Corn is over $6 and beans are over 15. So, you know, those are just some hurdles we overcome.
Yep.
Any other questions on that?
No.
And just to let you know, some counties have submitted letters that say they oppose it, and some have not.
I'd get on your letter.
Okay,
Thank you.
well, thank you.
Thank you for the completion of another program
Double
year.
check that I signed them all.
I will.
Bob's got a question.
Bob has one.
Yeah, coincidentally, this morning we received from Land Plus Water. Did you get this correspondence from Ashland County, which are one of the 18 counties that successfully administer this program?
No, I did not.
Well, anyway, it's an email. I'll forward it to you. It's opponents to,
Changing.
AB 49. So I'll forward that all to you.
So they're against it. So there's probably more. Okay.
So did you say, Bob, they administer their own? Okay.
Yeah, so it involves some county staff. So there's, they have some other talking points. They also have a list of all the senators and representatives who wrote, co-sponsored the bill. Janet Bluey is one of them. Anyway, I'll just forward it.
Sure.
So can I ask, what, if we went the option of doing it ourselves, what would that look like? I mean, how would we
Bad.
do that? I
I
mean,
think.
Dad, do you
We're gonna
know, I
take
mean,
over.
of other counties that maybe do their own? I mean, what is it structured like? What?
You just have to find staff within the county
Go out.
to have the time to do it. And the training and the retraining.
Site, you know, and check them and
Right.
do all that
Right.
if you get calls. Yeah, so I.
Some do that, but most they don't have any standalone wildlife damage specialists, okay? They have a manure management person or some kind of conservation planner who then does that on the side. And in some counties where they maybe have 0 to 1 or 2 claims, like Ashland, that's probably how it gets handled.
Yeah, because Ashland isn't gonna have a whole bunch of claims.
Right.
But Ashland has AFO issues like other counties can, and they want staff to deal with those first. And if they,
Eventually, we would be cloning a new you within. the
I don't remember how long Polk County's contracted it out, but it's been considerable, 25 years probably.
Yeah.
When
More
you
than-
contracted.
More than that, I mean, originally, the
remember
first
what
time I knew of it in 30 years, because Dad still owned the farm at the time, and that's over 30 years ago.
Sure.
Cindy Blanc showed up.
And she's a Napa County employee.
Oh, is she?
So
Okay.
Polk County contracted with another county to actually do the program since that time. So Polk County, you're right, Polk County hasn't done it for all practical purposes 3 decades. Yeah. And when it was introduced in the 80s, you know, participation was low. None of the species that are in the program were at the populations they exist today. Corn was $1.80. A lot of things have changed, and as it made participation increase, counties couldn't keep up with that. That's what most of the changeover was. And just because I've been here 27 years, and with the exception of 3 counties, 4 of them I came into were during transitional periods, Polk being one of them. It typically happened when there was a turnover of staff or a retirement or some change in the position. Hey, this is a good time for us to get out of that business, other than what you work with me here on. So,
Yeah, so it takes some time.
Yeah, there's a lot of time, and I mean, I'm just gonna say in Polk County, there's quite a bit of man hours invested into
Yeah.
this piece of paper that you give us today.
There's only 6 approved, but how many actual claims? Yeah, besides. you have to
Right,
go
but that's
check
what I mean.
Participants.
Participants.
Yeah, and I showed you that last month,
Yeah,
the
the list.
enrollment numbers and the damage prevention side. That's the considerable time
Yeah.
eater. I had 2 other people assist with appraisals during the fall. You know, I can't do appraisals in 4 counties when most people all want to get it off within a very narrow window of time. So, but, you know, and one of the things that I probably don't do a great job of highlighting is that claim drop is probably due to our focus on damage prevention. That is what our number 1 goal is. Claims the second side. That's in statute. That's the program's priority, damage prevention reduction. Elimination is a great goal, but it's usually not feasible.
The fences and stuff, so some of them specialty places, vegetable ones, they don't have a claim in there anymore, some of those, so I mean, that part's worth.
Right.
So,
And there's other factors. I mean, I tooted my
Yeah.
horn, but there's other factors. Some of those are gone or not in production, or, you know, manage it a little differently or whatever the case. There's been a cultural shift in how we treat deer, I think. Even in the 27 years since I've been doing this, there's deer are regarded differently by a different generation. You know, when I first started working with that early generation, they didn't grow up with deer. You know, the sighting of a deer made headlines or the talk at the feed mill. And, you know, and as that changed, you know, deer are, especially in Polk County, highly regarded, and land is guarded too for access to those deer. So in a program where it requires public hunting access, you typically aren't enrolling them.
all right, well, thank you.
Justin has a question.
Oh, Justin, go ahead.
I forgot it. Oh, what? So give me a second.
I think we got this.
Where does money come from to fund
It
it?
happens.
Where does the money come from to fund the claims that we give out each year?
Good question, Justin. And I just assume we all know that. That is obtained from a user group. It's a $2 surcharge on every license sold. And the entire amount of the bonus deer tag. That tag is $12 for residents and $20 for non-residents, minus the administrative fee that the department pays to the company who runs the selling system. So all that dollars is generated through hunter dollars. We have always called it hunter dollars.
So if we don't, as the DNR, if they don't use it all this year, it stays in the pot until next year. And
in most cases, it stays in that fund, but overflow funds typically get targets in Madison. And in the past, it has. It's been targeted for completely unrelated reasons to this. So hunters paid for other things. Now that hasn't occurred for quite some time, and the fund has greater than $5 million in it. So it is gaining, the target's big again. You know, hence the Farm Bureau pushing for removing the cap. Now, the max claim, by the way, affects under 1% of claimants.
oh yeah, I mean, because even here
So
we
the
got.
underlying of this bill is they have control, so they can empty that fund at any time. It's the underlying factor.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's a small group, because if you look over the years, we don't pay max out, and even here, when we cross counties, I mean, we've got a couple, you know, so, yeah.
I can count on both hands how many max claims I've had in 27 years. Now, other counties, it's not the case. It's different. It just varies. Every county is different. Some may have 30 claims and some 3 to 0. I had the first claim in Chippewa County in 5 years. So it can just vary.
So we don't get any money to help administer the program. That's just the money that goes to the claimants, correct?
No,
Out of that.
Justin, the fee or the cost to administer the program in Polk County annually is 100% reimbursed from that fund. And that's in the budget that we do every year. So we budget administrative and damage prevention costs. We don't budget claims. That's coming from the same pot, but it's just their line items are different. That makes sense?
Yeah. Well, there's no way to know what the line item is for the claim.
Correct.
Right.
You know.
But we know the cost roughly based on previous years' enrollment and participation numbers, what it's going to cost to administer it again next year. And remember, there's a fixed cost, whether you have 5 or 50. If you're going to have a program that has the ability to accept a call and get out there that day or the next day, there's a cost.
Per scenario.
Right.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Any other questions? None. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks. Yeah, still here.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Let's see, I'll try and make this brief. Just a quick reminder that the Comprehensive Trail Network Plan is available on the website on our homepage. Top right corner, there's a link there, so anyone can view it at any time. Let's see, not a whole lot of changes, I guess, since we last met. That trailhead project in St. Croix Falls is still in the city's hands. And again, we're waiting on an agreement for them for this project that we can co-sign. And then also an operations and maintenance agreement for both parties so that we can outline what we're going to do between the two of us. Their engineering firm is going to handle the design and the construction side of it, and they will bill us, it sounds like. So things are still moving forward on that, sounds like. An update for us, group of staff is going to go out on Thursday to work on that Candy Dancer parking lot improvement project. Look at a couple different sites, and we'll also look at Summers Lake for an investigation for some trail options out there. We're doing that on Thursday afternoon. Any questions on that? That's kind of a basic update I have on the trail network plan.
We're moving on, yeah.
Yeah. Going forward with the ATV, UTV intensive park, the RFP is out. We've contacted firms just like we did for the trail network plan development, let them know that it's out there. So we hope we get some good response. Just a reminder that it closes on February 25th. And a deadline for the preliminary design work from the RFP would be April 1st. So that we can have time to turn that around to a grant application by the 15th of April.
That's our first meeting. We'll get to see them RFPs. They're gonna go through us or skip us or not, or what, if there's more than one, or how does that gonna work?
It's March 2nd, Janice, your next meeting, you would have those bids.
Okay, to look at?
Right.
Okay.
You know, and that's also another piece, it's a little off topic, but the presentation of the engineering and project management bids for the Clam Falls Dam repair.
Okay, would be coming too.
Yeah, I would imagine we need a recommendation to general government, or does that just go straight to general government?
Well, if it's budgeted and below $75,000, general government doesn't review it. So it's
I think we
staff.
should look at it and probably still send it to
So
them.
for March
Just to
2nd
keep it kind of, it's a money thing. I think we should send it to the general government. I mean, that's kind of a finance thing.
Yeah, but I mean, our policy is if it's a budgeted expense and it's less than 75,000 on RFP, general government doesn't look at it, staff does it.
Oh, staff does.
Yeah.
Or us.
Okay. So
Because it's already in the budget.
it's already in the budget. So
We just want to see if there's more than one. I think it's the oversight. We just want to see some, I guess. Do we still
for
get
the
that?
Clam Falls Dam, or both?
Both. The trail stuff in that. I think.
We'll bring both of those.
Bring them both, I guess, bring them and we'll see. Yeah, because otherwise that stuff gets started and nobody knows what's happening here. Yeah. Okay. All right,
That's the quick and dirty report. for you.
sounds good.
Questions?
Park and Trails is, who's doing the, are you doing?
Yeah.
Cool.
Morning, I'm Rod Polk, Facility Manager in for Mo Norby. Mo checked with the DOT, and for the Woodley Dam site, they would like us to move the entrance, remove it from Highway 8 and put it on Highway H, which we own the land, so that shouldn't be an issue. So we will be in the process of removing the entrance from that area off of Highway 8 after we install it on Highway H. So we'll be moving on with that. We did FECON a trail. We're putting a overhead light, parking lot light up at the Sterling Campground. So we FECON a trail to the nearest light pole. I got with Polk Burnett out there to get the easiest route for that. So that's already done. And we did do some FECON work in Summers Lake also. We made that trail a little more accessible, and we did grub out some for to extend the parking lot a little bit at this point. So, and Bob talked about the RFPs for the Atlas and Clam Falls. Other than that, that's all I have.
Just put the parking lot on, it's as far as it's going till spring, isn't it? All in the sand and do all that.
Yeah, we're gonna let some of the snow melt, and then once it starts thawing, we're gonna level it out, do some bulldozer work in there.
So it'll be a while, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Just that I wanted Amy to make sure they knew that they weren't moving tomorrow on it and stuff. So it has to be thawed out a bit, so it's gonna be 2 months. So
Right. Yep, and I did get with Excel Energy down there to add a parking lot light also.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I have to do an application with them
Oh, sure.
to get that ball rolling.
Yep. Okay.
Chairman, we forgot to talk about PTAG under Tim's agenda item. Is that okay?
Oh.
Is it-
Sure, we can come back. Any more questions for Rod? You did good.
All right.
Thank you.
I just wanted to update you since, excuse me, conversation happened a little bit earlier in the meeting about the PTAG agenda. We do have an action item, a discussion item for the PTAG participants about getting some input on the biking, equestrian, and cross-country skiing trails that are part of the projects that we listed. So that's one of the discussions that will happen there. We reviewed the bylaws and the resolution that formed PTAG. And yes, the administrator is the person that does appointments and membership kind of stuff. So we're just gonna have a discussion with the PTAG membership because some members, their term has come up and they've still continued to work until the trail network plan was accomplished. So just want to refresh them as to the process that, if you want to stay on the committee, you reapply, that kind of thing.
Sure, get reappointed by.
Yep, and then make sure that the information of them as a representative of their user group to be able to be a two-way street between the county and their user group. So that information is more freely flowing between what's happening at PTAG and the county and those user groups. So that communication piece is re-emphasized.
So since this is now finished, is the intent that PTAG will just remain as an advisory group for the?
If there's something.
Yep, it's
I
a
think
group
that's
that
what
was
we have
created
to
by
decide.
resolution, so it exists until you guys decide to close it.
So it will continue to meet monthly?
As needed, yeah, I mean, it has been mostly monthly, but there's been some gaps when stuff was getting processed or reviewed by the consultant. So we didn't meet last month, for example, so we will meet this month. So it's kind of an as needed basis.
What was the term? I mean, was it a 2-year term, Tim?
We had 1 and 2 year terms, so we staggered half the group was a 1-year term and the other half is 2-year terms. We're thinking after we reviewed the bylaws that it probably makes sense to start terms and end terms around the county board elections, since you're going to have 2 members of county on there, and that the turnover should happen in April, more or less. So that's
That's
something
what
we'll be revisiting at the.
That's when he would appoint somebody that's applied.
Yeah, it just makes sense to, if you're gonna have change in county board membership, that maybe the whole thing should get reevaluated then.
So then really the turnover wouldn't happen until May or June, because the board would get seated, people would have to apply. I mean, it would be sometime.
Yep.
2, 3, whatever, I don't know, 4 months down the road from April until the turnover on P-TAG would happen, just because of who's going, we got to put out, do you want to be on it, that kind of thing, and then gather that information but the process would start after an election. I mean, and then however long it takes.
And if it's a 2-year one, you're just staggering.
Right. Yeah, just so we don't have complete turnover. So there's some continuity there.
PTAG with these advisory and studies coming on, I mean, I think they're gonna help us that way too. I think that's why, you know, always said, what are they gonna do? I mean, and all these other projects coming up.
Yeah.
You know, keeps their public informed too
Yeah.
and stuff. Like Amy said, we gotta get our process down that way.
Yes, that's a good point. I think there's some value to retaining PTAG. We do have some outstanding projects though within the plan. We have to find routes for cross-country skiers, mountain bikers, and equestrians on county forests. So we have a suggestion we're going to share with PTAG regarding that at future planning work. But yeah, going down the line, for example, the feasibility study on the Gandy, there's some value that PTAG could provide for that. And any other emerging issues regarding trails or parks, you might want to deflect that to this advisory group. So there's
Get
there's
them to
that.
work. Yeah.
Otherwise, if we terminate that group, then we're bringing it back
Here to full them up where they at least can go. And we have all the user groups together at that one. That helps, I think, that way. So that the groups are informed also.
The key component to the meeting later this month is really to reinforce to PTAG members that it is their responsibility to disseminate these projects to their groups in the broader community. So we need to remind them that.
Sure.
And that, that could help resolve some of the rhetoric we're hearing.
Yeah. But like you said, this was the first shot through, the first budget through, and everybody all of a sudden now went, whoa, it happened.
Well, we're trying to stay on task.
But I mean, that's where we need that. When it's coming up, I think we have to get that out there of what projects are going to be done. Maybe a little more or whatever.
It was a quick process back in October, but
and like this wasn't out, so now at least we have this to go through that we're going to go and say, okay, now we're on number 7. Boom, here. What do you think? Should we do this one or this? Does it help all the groups, like the parking lots, help everybody? Like the Gandy parking lots and stuff you guys are going to look at Thursday. That's some of the higher things maybe PTAG will bring up too, that they need more room there. So
sure. Yeah, I mean, if you recall those meetings in October, we went through those projects in depth. I mean, we were talking for an hour and a half at least on those things. So we covered it pretty in depth, and then general government did the same thing.
Well, and then they have to get it through to get it on the budget, so we could do them this year and get them started. So. No, they had engineers do it. There might be an engineer out. There's guys that are almost engineers that are on there. I mean, there's some guys that do a lot of stuff, so it's close.
So just a trail comment in general, because I was on Land and Water website the other day looking for something that I didn't find, but I found something else.
Must not have been any of your business that you were digging in.
Yeah. Anyway, it said on there we have like 2 miles of snowshoe trails in the county, and I think we need to be more proactive in things like that, because maybe we got 2 miles of groomed snowshoe trail in the county, but we got 17,000 acres that I can go snowshoe on. And to say that we have 2 miles of trails, that's fine, but I think we should also then be stating there's 17,000 acres of ungroomed trails, because at least when I was younger, skinnier, and in better shape and did snowshoe, I don't want to go snowshoe on a snowshoe trail that's beat down as hard as this. I want to go out in the woods or on a trail and actually snowshoe. And I think we need to tell those people, hey, we got 17,000 acres and then there's hundreds of miles of trails through our county forest that you could be snowshoeing on. You know,
Or the Ice Age Trail, how long is that through the county? I think you can snowshoe.
yeah.
So there's, yeah, quite a few that way. So that's something maybe they gotta look at how it's broken down, maybe the trails and actually say what numbers are out there.
When it did, it told all the numbers of miles of trails, snowmobile, you know, all of that, but I just looked at the 2 miles of trail and thought, we got 17,000 acres, I can go snowshoeing. You know, with trails everywhere on it, so why aren't we?
More snowshoe trails in the interstate park than 2 miles even. And that's in Polk County.
Mhm.
So
Okay. All right, that's something Pete can think of. There you go. Get them guys going.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Number 12, Eric.
Special delivery before I head up there, because we'll need your signature.
Oh, if we vote, yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Couple of items that you've seen before. We're coming to you again on. The first one would be consideration of the 2022 Wisconsin Land Plus Water election ballot. 2 years ago, you made your choices on the ballot for some candidates for the Land and Water Conservation Board. And with our Land Plus Water Conference coming up, we're going to be appointing new members to that Land and Water Board, and would like the input of all of the committees across the state. Hopefully you were able to get a chance to look at this in your packets and review the candidate bios. But did you get a chance to look at that?
I got my ballot, Mark.
Good. Could we put that up on the screen, please?
I'll bring that up.
Yeah, have you worked with any of these people?
Well, I have.
What do you think of them too? I mean, you
limited-
gotta work with them, so I mean, that's part of it too.
Yep, limited capacity. Monty Osterman has been the chair for quite some time. And I've always appreciated him and how he represented himself and others on the.
Who was the chair, did you say?
Monty Osterman.
from Racine.
No check by his name on my ballot.
So I've got some experience with him. I
Okay.
also know Russ Rensig of Barron. He's
See, there's one from Barrett. Yeah, Ross.
he's a supervisor. And no complaints there. Also take this as an opportunity to kind of plug this. This is a ballot of your peers. And notice we don't have anyone from the Northwest area on there, which that's where Polk County is. So, you know, we could always use good supervisors on that committee. And if you're ever interested in playing a part on this board, it's available to you. So
So how long are their terms?
2 years, I believe. Yeah.
So it's just a 3-member board then?
No, to be
Like
honest,
8 or something.
yeah, it's larger than that. And it's made up of DADCAP staff.
Okay,
I
but
believe
as
some-
far as what we vote on,
Yeah, today
Yeah.
you need to choose 3.
right,
Because
but
those
we're
are the
picking
3.
those 3, and that's all the counties ever choose from around the state is these 3 every 2 years.
It's staggered.
It would be staggered.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so every 2 years, we're revisiting this for another set of 3-year or 2-year terms of 3 candidates.
Yeah.
So, yeah, as far as the ballot goes,
The goal is to find a consensus between you all.
exactly.
Which one?
Bob, do you know what committee this is?
Let's do the easy one. Let's do Russell. What's everybody think of Russell?
Russell.
Yeah,
Which one
he's
is
got
it?
a check.
One from
Yeah.
Barnett.
He got a check because he was from Barron County.
He's the closest to us, so I mean, that's why I'm saying at least somebody close, because there's nobody up in this whole area, but Polk. There's nobody from Douglas, is there? Washburn, this whole corner,
Well,
Burnett.
Right.
Robert Thome from Rhineland.
That's, Rhinelander's quite a way.
Yeah, but at least it's familiar.
Yeah, well, he's North Highway 8.
Yeah.
All right, let's start with Russell. What do we think? I'm thinking yes. Doug? We got the two guys online and they're not talking to us. Jeremy?
Jeremy left.
Justin?
Justin
Jeremy,
left.
Justin, it's a
Justin
J.
left.
Did he?
Justin left the meeting.
He left?
Oh.
The only thing he votes on and he left. My God, wait till
I
we
tell
see
him to
him.
get back on.
Wait till we see him in person. We'll vote for him. He's gonna say yes to Russell. So we got two. What's
He
everybody?
says in Florida on vacation, going to jump off after crop stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
That's no excuse.
That's no excuse.
Vacation.
I'm
I
okay
hope it's
with Russell.
25 when he's
You're
there.
okay with
Okay.
Russell?
Oh, yeah, he was checked on my box.
Russell?
Yeah, how about, is Doug still on?
So
Sure.
Well, the three here, you already voted. So it was good.
yeah, vote for whoever you want, Tracy.
You can do whatever you want.
Doug's there, but he needed it.
Yeah, I asked him on you. There he goes. Doug's back.
Doug is back. All right.
Yeah, I was muted. I didn't know that.
Okay. What did you think about Russell on this?
I said yes.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any choice for the next two or next one?
No, I was just reading about Tom, let's see, Monty Osterman.
Yeah, I've got his
Yep.
name down too.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna throw, and I'll vote for Monty. I don't, but I'm gonna throw Melissa Luck in. That was one of the three that I had.
You're gonna vote for Monty? Let's do that first, so we have two done. What do we think?
Well, maybe I wasn't gonna vote for Monty if I didn't get Melissa. Then it was a 2-for-1.
Oh, that's I'm cutting him off. See how that's
Yeah,
working?
that you worked that
Might
then.
work that well.
You might have to go by show of hands here pretty soon. I might have to take charge of this.
Pistol shoot. What do you think, Sharon? Monty?
You go with Monty?
Yeah,
All votes for
I'm
Monty.
okay with that.
1, 2, 3, doesn't
Yeah,
matter, Sharon.
I'm
Going
okay,
straight,
I'm
four
okay
of us.
with Monty.
Okay, that was everybody on two of them. Now, the last one's gonna be a battle. Here we go.
It's gonna be between Rebecca and Melissa.
Rebecca and who?
Melissa?
So how many votes would Melissa get? Let's start there. Like we've
They're
got
still
one.
looking. I gotta go. Who did you say?
And Eric, you have not worked with either of these?
I have not. Nope. I've just read the bios as you have.
So is Monty the only one who's like running again that's on the board?
That's Robert Thome.
Robert Torm is on. The incumbent, isn't he? And he's at least from Odina, so he's
I believe
from the
that's,
north.
I believe that's correct.
He's
Robert Tomei.
Tony, he's from Rhineland.
Yeah.
He's the Rylander one, but he's at least north of Highway 8.
Monty are the 2
1694.
incumbents.
He's been on there for a while, hasn't
I gotta go find Rebecca, right?
So Eric, I'm gonna put you on the spot. So in reading their bios, are you more one versus the other between Melissa or Rebecca? If you see different qualifications?
I don't even have Melissa on my.
You're on tape, Eric, when you say this.
Yep.
I don't even
Yep. Let me just
Oh, you do.
get to both of them here.
voting. So probably.
You know what? Bob, could you please go up to the ballot?
Absolutely. I think it's-
Because
Melissa's
Melissa,
not on it.
Yeah, she's on there.
On the next page on mine.
She is not my ballot though.
so I think there is a mistake.
Okay.
Melissa, and this will make it easy for you, when we submitted this for your packets, there was a revision to the ballot. Melissa is no longer on the ballot.
Oh, Brad.
So, anyway.
So that explains why I can't find her bio here. And that explains why
That's why I didn't have it here. Yeah,
your ballot is the most current.
okay.
So with that, I think
I gotta go look at the
Clark
others now.
has a fine resume.
So who do you have on your ballot?
Clark,
Bill?
Rebecca Clark.
What?
Who's all on your ballot?
That's the only one that was on. Was Melissa. All the rest are on.
So
She was the only one who dropped off.
Melissa, yeah, there was a revised ballot sent out, and all apologies that did not get in your packet. But Melissa,
Because the Southern usually overpowers it down
Yeah,
there. So any of the Southern ones, they seem to overpower the whole.
I was quite impressed by
Yeah, right.
Rebecca Clark's resume and her experience. There's a broad range of experience right there. I think she'd be a good candidate.
I think Melissa was a better one.
Okay.
well, but
Took herself out of the race. You're
done.
That's
I would vote
not
for
make it
Rebecca.
an NA, Brad.
Yeah,
That's an NA. So I'm thinking either that Robert or Rebecca.
I
And
go with Rebecca.
I'd like to vote for Robert because I want somebody out of the north. I think the Lake Michigan stuff gets pretty overpowered.
Robert also has
Good resume.
a good resume as
yeah.
well. Yeah, so it's 6-1.
But the Southern
I'm voting,
takes it.
I'm voting with the ladies.
Yeah.
Are you voting with the ladies?
I'm voting with the ladies.
So you two vote. How about Doug?
I would go with Rebecca Clark.
4-1, we gotta take her.
Okay.
All right.
If you look at this priorities.
Sign that?
I gotta sign.
Yes, please sign that ballot and I'll forward that on to, I believe, Chris at Land Plus Water.
I should probably date it too, so because it says by a
Sure,
certain time,
sure.
and that would justify when our meeting. Okay, now the second letter.
Yeah, I'll cover that now. So, thank you all for that. That
Make sure when he signed that, he put Rebecca in and not, the guy he
Yeah.
wanted.
You guys don't get
Because I
to,
heard earlier today, trust no one.
you don't even get to see what I do. If I gotta sign it, it's my way.
Put a sharp eye to it.
Yeah.
Photocopy that and send us all a copy just
Yeah.
to make sure.
After it's sent out.
Sure.
Right, so next item, we're keeping with the momentum we have on the groundwater testing countywide and accomplishing a fair amount with regards to that in our land and water plan. So thank you all for your support on that and with our 2023 staffing allocation grant, we have another application for SEG innovation funds. And so I've taken the liberty to draft another grant application for another watershed-wide groundwater testing study in 2023. So if you remember, we have the Upper Trade River watershed and Apple River flowage on the agenda for this year. And next year, the next one on the list would be the Straight River watershed. So this particular application for 2023 would pertain to the Straight River. And we'd love a letter of support for that application. So I've provided Chair O'Connell with a letter of support. It's very similar to the last one that you signed. We got it up on the screen if you want to take some time to review it, but basically the program would be the same, though a little smaller scale because of the size of the watershed. Straight River is about 21,000 acres. And based on population within that watershed, we're thinking that 50 well water tests within that watershed would be a good amount. So otherwise.
So you would, I mean, so 50 is the goal, but if you got 60, that would be fine, or it's kind of like we set the goal at 50 and say that's it, like we've been at 100 on the others, but didn't necessarily reach them.
Yeah. I think with the flexibility of funding we have, thanks to the $10,000 that the county budget has also put towards this, we would have some flexibility if we had more sample requests, we could fund those.
So it would help.
But it would help. But as of right now, the budget that I would be submitting would be for 50 samples.
It isn't like we could do, we'd want to do 100 in it. I mean, but if you had 5 or 6 more, that would be.
Right.
It wouldn't hurt,
We
yeah.
could probably move some money around to cover those samples pretty easily.
And we haven't reached the goal in the others, so why would all of a sudden be,
Yeah.
but just in case, I mean.
You
I
might,
think,
if there's any, now the manganese, we test, you don't even
Yeah.
test for that, do you? In these?
We don't on manganese. And we did easily reach our goal in the Balsam Lake watershed. We were a little short in WAPO, Upper Trade and Apple River. I'm hopeful that we'll hit those 100 sample marks.
So now if you go into a watershed and it doesn't matter where it is, but I mean, if 6 people in a row say, I want mine tested, do you take them all? I mean, because then maybe we run out on the other side of the watershed somewhere, you know what I'm saying? I mean, so that we're spread out through the watershed instead of saying, well, we had 14 people in a row who wanted to sample their wells, and I'm not against that, but then are we
Limiting it.
limiting it to the geography of the watershed to say, well, somebody calls on the other side of the watershed, yeah, we got our 50 or 100, we're already past our limit, so to speak. I mean, I think it's great to go back in and take, that group if we haven't met our limit, but
We try and avoid hotspots, so to speak, for sampling with our mailing. And we try and have broad distribution of the notification of this. Certainly, we don't have much influence on where those samples are coming from, and by coincidence, they might come concentrated in a certain area. But we do take measures to try and get a good, random, broad distribution of the sampling.
Then in the northern area, there's still a lot of sand up there, too, up in that areas, yeah.
And so far in previous studies, we've had good random sampling and good broad distribution throughout the watershed. So I don't know if that's something I'm too concerned about in our watersheds.
well, and
because
it would,
there's-
I mean, realistically, it would
Farther south
only be if
it
you
comes,
got
it will be.
on a lake and 15 people in a row wanted to sample, you're not covering any
Huge area.
ground, but you all of a sudden you burned up, 15 samples in 1,500 feet.
And and that's where we kind of limit who we're notifying. I mean, we don't mail notifications out to everybody on the lake.
Okay.
We do randomly choose well owners throughout there, so we're not getting them all concentrated around the lake.
So it isn't like everybody in a watershed gets the letter. that
That's
says
right.
You want to, okay.
That's right. And that's
why
kind of
they
how
send
we,
them out
Yeah,
random to
that's-
start,
that
yeah.
keeps
So we proposed a random sampling at the front end.
Yeah,
That's how we
and
manage it.
that keeps the 14 or 15 in a row from saying, hey, we all want to sample, which, so yeah, no.
That's right.
And then they might sample their own, too.
Right.
Right.
I mean, it's starting to get out there. People are even thinking about that. Clayton and
Miss-
all this.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question, please?
Yes, go ahead.
This is for Eric. Back when the Bone Lake was working on the Straight River, they were gonna have the dam and impoundment again, but my wife and I did kind of a personal study and we followed it, the Straight River from Straight Lake, and then it flows down and ends up in Round Lake. Then it goes out of Round Lake and goes into Little Blake Lake. Then it flows out of Little Blake Lake under the bridge into Big Blake Lake, and then it becomes Fox Creek. So does it end there, your study? Or do you follow a little further? Because it is still the flowage.
that's very close to where it would end. If I'm not mistaken, I'm a little foggy on the map, but it seems to me the Blake Lakes is about the southern edge of it, I think.
Okay, that makes sense. I just trying to clarify where you flow it to, and flowage or whatever.
We have,
But then it just turns into a different watershed that's gonna be picked up at a later date and time. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, I'd probably go into one of the Apple River watersheds.
I thought we had the map.
We don't have the.
What is there,
it's called
40?
on flyer,
You do on the web extreme.
web stream.
What was it, 42 or 43?
Doesn't Fox Creek go into Apple?
Fox Creek goes into Bone Lake.
It comes out of Bone Lake.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes to Apple.
I could go grab the map quick if you would like me to.
That'll be close.
but I mean, sign the paper. I'm all for it.
I think, do we need a motion for this one or a consensus? I guess it goes to Dad Cap probably in our minutes. We should have a motion to approve.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think that would
Well,
solidify it.
better to have it and not need it than
Yeah.
need it and not have it.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. So with that, all those in favor then say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Should we all sign it? Just me sign it to get it going?
Your name's on it.
Right now, we just have
Just mine to.
your signature listed on there, and that would be enough.
I'll date this one too, just in case, if you look back at the minutes. If she remembers to put it in. It'll be.
Super. Thank you very much again for your support, and we'll get this off to the Land and Water, and we'll submit our grant application.
When is the meeting? So we know who wins the election.
It is March 2nd through the 4th. And unfortunately, it's going to be virtual again this year. That was a change. It was planned to be in person, Wisconsin Dells, Chula Vista, but it will be virtual.
No trip to the Dells.
All right. Right.
That's kind of a bummer.
A downer.
That's kind of a downer. I might have drove again.
Way more to do in Polk County than in Wisconsin.
That's a nice drive. It's usually that or Appleton, but there's more to do in the Dells. Hello, Jason.
Morning. So
Hopefully you only put the pages up that cheap.
it's all in blue text. It's the same, and that I had sent out a few days ago. And then if you were able to look at that, the main change on that was the high density use concept. And that at the last meeting, we talked about multiple owners owning a piece of land and how we really didn't want to go down that track, especially as far as the administration through Steve and whatnot with the real property listing side of it. And so we drafted the idea or the concept of a high density use. And the reason why that we went by density is because in the past, a form of ownership like a condominium or a joint tenants, and that is not something that we can require a conditional use on because it's not considered an actual use. So there's a big battle, and that is actually up by Wilkins and the Easy Living area on that one, and that with Yugi and Benson Law back in the day. So that's where I think in that going off of our density standards in our zoning districts, and that is a more solvent approach. So I don't know if you want to go through and that the changes, or is there any
Let's
questions?
go to the, yeah. Nope. It's the blue one.
The blue ones, okay.
Just, let's get to the blue, because otherwise the 1,000 foot is still in there. I mean, that'll be for public hearing.
Page 8.
So the blue represents what we talked about last meeting, right?
And then they
That's
changed
any
this one.
changes from last week.
The only
20-acre
changes.
ones.
Right.
At the last meeting, we had talked about water bodies that are owned exclusively by one person and that family or other entity. So in other words, that you're not being penalized if you do own all the water around it. So that went through each one wherever we had the unnamed water body. So that provision is exactly the same. So you'll see it, I think, 3 or 4 times in here.
Yeah.
Next one.
Same thing there and the conservation design development, so. Same thing again, that's the third time. There was some stuff in that just to take and make everything jive with the the chapter 32 dwelling definitions. We added intermittently or as a principal residence in chapter 32. So I thought that those should go into each one of these dwelling communities. That was a change that I recommended. This is the biggest change in that. This is that high density use concept, which means that a property is held under fractional or shared ownership. And then that is owned by more than one family or more than two people, unless immediate family members, and B, the dwellings thereon are used by more than one family. And pulling that back, the most important thing of this is probably the last sentence there, where it's the maximum number of dwelling units, and that allowed on any lot should be determined upon the lot size and zoning district. So this would allow, the way this is worded, and that let's say that you've got 3 acres and 300 feet of frontage on a class 1 lake. This would allow 3 entities basically to own that property because each one of them could have their own dwelling unit because of the lot area. So, and if they exceed that, then it would be a conditional use permit. So that one property on a class 100 feet and 1 acre could be owned by 2 people. So that's the exception to the rule because we wanted our 2 families and that, but then anything more than that, the high density use would kick in once the normal dwelling units is exceeded in family members. And of course, they'd always be able to be owned by 2, no matter what size it is, so.
So could I build an 8-bedroom, 1 8-bedroom home?
You can, and then if you own it yourself.
3 acres, I mean, so I could have 3 houses or 1 big house there.
You get everything to fit because your sewer well.
Yeah, I mean, everything would fit. So density wise,
still pretty tight.
I can have 3.
You could have a 8-bedroom house and 3 families to own it. And then once you have 4 acres and 400 feet of frontage, you'd have 4 that could own it,
So my question is going to be not so much about that, but they would then have to come back and get they wanted an 8-bedroom house and turn it into a tourist rooming house. They would have to come back for a conditional use permit, right?
Because you'd have 8 different entities that could be using it. If they were renting out each room and that as a separate tourist rooming house, then that'd be 8 different entities. Yes, that'd be a high density use. So, yep, for a CUP.
Yeah, the density part.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the density. Yep.
Biggest change. This is one that Brian came up with, just defining people. Let's include a little definition of people in that. So when we're talking about and then owned by 2 people, what does that mean? So that's why. Okay, this is something in that Brian wanted to suggest, and that, but a transient lodge, remember, and that a tourist rooming house is good up to 8 people, and that transient lodge, possibly, last meeting, it was proposed to be 14 people. Brian would like to propose that down to be 12 people, so this would apply between 9 and 12 rental occupants, and he's putting in there a new concept of 7 days a month, and that over the summer, but still allowing the maximum rental, because this is going back to the density and the use of the lake and the amount of boats on a lake. Most people don't use the lake that much in the wintertime, or the increase in use is offset by other people not coming up to their cabins. And that's so allowing them to still rent over the winter months more, but limiting the number of days they're renting, and that through the open water season for like the amount of boats and stuff that are on the lakes. He just threw it out there as a policy thing, and that whether you like it or not, that's up to you guys. So, and the idea is that that would still allow them to rent it for basically 1/4 of the time, and that throughout the summer. And basically 7 days could almost be 2 weekends. So if they're up there every other weekend, they'd be able to rent it out on the weekends that they're not there as well.
7 is too light. I mean, for people, if they're up every other weekend, it would be 3 days, but people come for a week on a lot of these. You know, and those are, they still have the 174, but I mean, the other thing is, how are we going to enforce?
So that'd be through our annual permit, and then they'd have to provide us with a rental calendar on when they're gonna be renting throughout the summer.
Bring that old tourist rooming thing, where they're supposed to keep track of all this up to a year afterwards, is what was in our first tourist rooming house stuff. Or, you know, that when somebody signed in and that, it was up to a year.
We don't have anything like that currently, yeah.
No.
And nobody.
Mr. Chairman,
I think we should have it, so they have to do like the pumpers, they have to send this in every month or every other
Right.
month.
Right.
They have to send it to zoning, so you don't have to go and check every time. I think that should be in our CUP maybe for
Yeah,
any of these.
I like that.
Doug, go ahead.
well, I'm just reading this and I'm a little lost on, it, starts with transient lodge and it goes 9 to 12 people for up to 7 days per month. That's only 1 week a month. You can rent it out all summer. I don't think people are gonna be too happy with that.
I don't either. That's why I said that number's a little light, isn't it?
Very much so.
I like it.
I like it too.
I like it. I think I read that and it's like, I'm all in.
Like it.
Because I think it takes that,
Because you want the argument to be that big.
I don't.
I think it's gonna be.
I don't think the argument's gonna be that high. I mean, I think the people who live on the lake like this,
Oh, I would think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it once again, the last couple of years as we've had this argument, I think the problem has been is that it's been, can I say, too easy. And we've had people buying lake homes to do nothing more than rent them out.
Yeah.
And this is just another way to kind of rein that in a little bit. I mean, and if you want to rent it out every other weekend, like Jason said, you still can. If you want to rent it out 7 days in a row, because you're going to be there 3 weeks in a row, you can, but it isn't an everyday, all summer long, there's somebody new in next to you when you live on the lake.
But to me, I think it adds that extra protection for that permanent homeowner next to that transient.
Yeah,
Yep.
because at one point,
A busy time.
does
Yeah.
tourist rooming house and transient lodge become a commercial, it's a commercial business,
Right.
run in a residential area. I
Right.
personally, I'm opposed to any of it because it's a commercial business.
Right.
When people in those residential areas build a home, in a residential area, they don't expect to have a commercial business go in next door to them. And that's what's happening more and more.
That's one of the things in that's pretty unique about Polk County, and that I spend a lot of time in Sawyer County, and we're riding sleds through various
Yeah.
resorts and stuff and that, and they're great. I mean, it's one way to get people on the lake and that, but then it's concentrated to those areas, so there's where the boats are and all that. And now you got like little mini users that are super users all the way around the lakes. And right now, I mean, if I was to go out and if I picked at random 7 properties out of the 10, and that around any of our lakes, I'm probably going to be only 50% of them, and that are going to be actually there, and that's since COVID.
Yeah,
Before that,
yeah.
maybe 75% would be gone or not
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
So
Yeah.
the winter usage is not an issue. And it still allows, and that people that are coming up to go skiing, maybe at Trollhagen, or maybe they are going snowmobiling or ice fishing, and that it allows that cabin to be rented more. And that throughout the heating months too, so people are there. But then limits the amount of boats and stuff where you really see the high use in the summer. So anyway, it's just a concept.
I mean, I think it's a good thing to be there. We can see what the public comment is on it.
Right.
You gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's a lot of, it too. You gotta start.
Because you see, like, I agree, you're seeing more and more people buying lake homes that they can't afford unless they rent them out.
Right.
And so then they rent them out and then there goes the neighborhoods.
Well,
you
or they're
know.
buying them strictly for that reason.
Yeah.
I'm never
It's
gonna
a
live there, but
business. It's a
it's a
business.
business, you know.
Yeah.
I was out to one in that last week and I'm like, wow, I'm like, everything's, nice and clean. And then I'm like, there's just nothing, no personal belongings, white walls, everything, white cabinets, everything. And he said, oh, yeah, he said, we're just adding on to this and that because all of our VRBO guests want to put on a porch, or they want to have a porch on the place. And that, but he said, I didn't stay here one time last summer. He said it was booked every weekend.
But if you look, it's all around the country too.
Yeah.
Minnesota's having troubles.
Yeah.
Washington State, I see in different states are all having these troubles. Is it commercial or not?
Yeah.
Even some of the southern states. Florida's getting in on it now. It's.
I mean,
getting
why are they
so much-
paying the same taxes we are? It's a commercial business.
Yeah. So that's
But
a
you
lot of it.
also could piggyback onto what Chris brought up about these motels having these criminals living in them. I would sooner spend money on a rental property like this with knowing now that in each of these motels around in certain areas, they're housing,
Whatever.
Yeah.
criminals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that a reason why they're, more popular than motels? I don't know, but to me.
So we had individuals come from Green Bay last year, and they rented a house not that far away from us. And they rented the house, were by themselves, and had cooking utensils and all of that for less money than it would have cost them to rent two rooms, because there was, three people, two different families. So they had to go to the motel, rent two rooms, where here they could, and then go out and eat, where they could. So I get why people do it. I mean, it makes sense, but at the same point, for the most part, they're congregated around a lake. And why? Because I want to put my boat on the lake and I want to, and all of that. So I think this is great. I'm
We
all
got
for
one,
it.
they have church services there now.
We can start with that, it's like that 1,000 foot, anything else. I mean, it's all objective, so we can go through it then. Get some public input to see what everybody does think. Okay.
What about the number of 12? That was one of the things that,
Yeah, I like it.
I did too.
The 9 to 12, what was the change?
Oh, yeah, number 12, yeah.
From 14 to.
I think, and they can come back and ask for more. I mean, so, right, because it gives them the ability to.
But they'd be through another use, then, so it'd be more of like a resort then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, it'd be 12 people in one house, so that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they'd have to have 6 bedrooms legally to have 12 people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's gonna be a good sized place.
Yeah.
Changed it from 2-legged to poultry and that for farm animals.
Didn't say anything about 3-legged, so that must not count.
One-legged chicken. And so our high density uses, because we've got that defined, and that being prohibited within 1,000 feet of a public boat landing or ramp. So I thought that'd be a really good spot for that to fit. This is a provision in that we were talking about before, where the 2 people, so that's what we got rid of, and we created that high density.
The density part, yeah.
use concept. But I did keep T, which is the limitation on adding, large amounts of back lots and that to the riparian parcel, just so that they can subdivide more, so.
Yeah.
A little bit. Oh, no, give it on this, I see.
No, it's down, right there. That's,
Tourist rooming house, carrying that same provision or that same concept of the 7 days during the summer, but still keeping the same. I don't know why we had 24 weeks in there. That's kind of misleading. I kind of like to be consistent with in that days and days. So I just got rid of it. It's
174
supposed to be
days.
the same amount of days.
Yeah.
So and the 174 did not change.
So you're putting that on the tourist rooming house too?
Rooming house.
Okay. Cool. Okay.
Okay, so because we have all of our class 1 lakes with a 300-foot residential zoning district buffer around them, and that I do feel in that's where we're going to see our high density uses. So I think we need to have it as a conditional use in that zoning district. So that's one option. We
So it's
also
available,
carried it
right?
into both commercial and then zoning options as well. So left it out of the ag stuff because they're generally going to be larger parcels, and that's going to allow them to have more ownerships already in that because they can subdivide them into multiple pieces. And that, so I don't think it'll apply there very much. Should be good down to commercial now. Right there in that, in the B2 district, another high density use as a conditional use. Yep, that'd be B2. And it's in B3 as well. I did have to renumber all of these works in that formatting and make sure. And then this here was in there before. I believe Supervisor Olson, you brought this up, and that it was up in here, and then it moved it down because it says, and that in conjunction with any of the above uses, it was in the middle. So anyway, so that's all. It's just moving it around. Okay. This is underneath the easements and the shoreline provision in chapter 32, the subdivision stuff. This is my mistake in that last time we added for personal use primary by the immediate family member. And I realized when I was going through it that I didn't have it here. And otherwise, this text here is the exact same from chapter 32. In that, in fact, it goes back to it. So I wanted to make a mistake.
Sure. Okay. Yep, that makes sense.
And does not make it a high density use. So this is with the boat docking. And so if you've got two property owners and then they've got their, I'll call it two non-related owners, families that own a piece of property. And now it's only a 1 acre lot and one boat. If they go and they rent it on a boat slip, now we just kind of went about and went behind our backs basically and made it a high density use without we were going through the actual conditional use. This would take and apply there. So it would allow a single family or a single person the ability to rent out one dock space and that throughout the year. And that, but if they're going to exceed their allowed density, then that's going to be a high density use and then they cannot rent out.
So they could rent it out, but then if they had 3
600
boats of their
boats.
own,
They're one over, yeah.
yeah.
Yep, yeah, so just, yep.
What page are you on now?
53. Manufactured homes and that we took and added a bigger green space requirement for travel trailers. So it'd be one manufactured home and that for 2 acres of green space. And that for the travel trailer stuff. And in order to be consistent, this is the exact same provision here in blue underneath the manufactured home. So if we can scroll down to the travel trailer stuff, Bob, show them that that's the same. A little bit farther. Let's come back to this. I want to show that. So up a little bit. Okay. right here. That however clause is right there in the travel trailer part from last time. Leah, I believe, had said about the legal owner thereof, or maybe that was actually, I think Supervisor Nelson that brought that up, so I put that in there. Now let's go back up. Supervisor Nelson also wanted to suggest on our temporary campgrounds, he had made public comment before about equestrian horse camps and horse training and how they have more than 3 camping units or camping trailers there. And so he's
the weddings
put in
have
there to go to 10. And so that's, an arbitrary number. It's up to you guys. I did check with Brian Hobbs about the temporary campground permit. There's no issue with 10. There'd be no issues all the way up to like 100. It just depends on the fee that they're paying.
Sure.
Any issues with any of that?
No, that would, because that would cover the wedding deal too. I thought I had heard some people, trees were in weddings, so get that 5, 6.
In my opinion, with the amount of conditions that we've got provided, I don't think they're going to become an issue. So
yeah,
we've got a lot of rules on them. So down to the last page now. Okay. So this is kind of a new concept as well. It goes back to the public engagement, public involvement. There is 12 conditions that the committee is supposed to look at when they evaluate a conditional use permit. And number 12, we looked at adding something like that because when we look at a variance request, there's 3 criteria in granting a variance: unnecessary hardship, physical property limitations, and is it contrary to public interest? And now this is a little bit more than just whether or not somebody doesn't like the request, and that for like a variance, that maybe it's increased density on the lake or increased number of boats, or maybe it's adding on to the house when they can't underneath the normal rules, which is going to provide more impervious and more runoff. So that's kind of what number 12 is trying to get at: is it inconsistent with the purpose and intent of the ordinance? And so the request is consistent and not contrary to public interest or the public's point of view. I'm not sure if that's perfect wording, but that's kind of the goal. And it's very similar in that to, like number 9, the need for proposed use, that's very subjective. And that if we had each different use, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say, well, that's not the appropriate spot, or, I don't go and get my nails done. So, I don't need a beauty salon that does that, so there's various needs, if you don't have a dog, you don't need a vet, and then,
You do what they do in the salon.
So anyway, that's kind of where it is. And then ultimately it's up to you guys at the committee level and that on any of those conditional uses. But this is kind of what you're supposed to be looking at. So,
Jason and Bob know my point of view already. I hate it. I think it's pretty much the same thing we kicked out when I was at home a month ago. And I think it is way too broad. I mean, when somebody comes here for a conditional use permit,
Yeah.
I don't want to make it easy for us to turn them down, can I say? I mean, because I look at the Little Red Barn in Osceola and I'll take Nick's gravel pit. Well, how many times do we have somebody come in and say, hey, I think this person, what they want to do is the greatest thing in the world. No, you can't get anybody to show up for that, but you can get people to show up and say, it's against the public interest. It's against, and I want to be able to have to really work hard to say no to somebody, because we can throw all the conditions on that are reasonable on them to start with. And to me, when I look at that, that just gives this committee and a future this committee way too easy of a way to say, well, look, we had, 8 people showed up who were against it. It's against the public interest.
Yeah.
And I get it, it's subjective and it's not a lot different than 9, but it's out there and it's a really, to me, a way too easy out for this committee to say, yeah, you didn't bring enough people in who were for it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they were 10-1 against you. So it's against the public interest.
Yeah.
And I just, yeah, I don't
agree with you.
like it. I mean,
Really, and that administration wise, and that I really like, and that not contrary to public interest. I like that phrase right there, not contrary to public interest, because the amount of case law and that's tied to that and land use regulation is huge. And it really does support any time that you're dealing with Powderwood property and you need to deny a request or want to deny a request as a committee member because of the amount of boats on the lake. And that, I mean, boom, bingo, right there. You know, increased boat traffic, that really supports the committee in that. So maybe point of view and that is wrong. And that maybe that could be the purpose and intent of this ordinance instead. You know, and that, which we kind of got in this criteria anyway. But that's why I like in that contrary to public interest, because we were struggling and that sometimes, and that they can be able to have concrete findings of the fact and conclusions of law. And if we can tie stuff contrary to public interest, like I said, the case law is there. So
I think I could buy into that. Then it's the last portion of, you know, once you throw in the public's point of view, they can simply say, well, we outnumbered them 10-1.
Yeah.
It's the point of view that you have to turn it down. Like I say, I think in the years that I've sat here, we've turned down one conditional use. And to an extent, that's the way I want it to be. I mean, and we had to work hard to turn down that conditional use.
the statutes are written that way, and that it should be hard to turn
Right.
down.
And I don't want to make it, this to me as the whole up there makes it way too easy for this committee to say, a couple of people didn't want you to have this. So
Even the number 9, the need of the proposed use. How do you determine the need?
It's not, I mean, a lot of this stuff is kind of all good stuff, you know, but like the location of the floodplain, how does that support the actual denial? We've got very little floodplain. That's what I really like this, because there's so much case law on that, and it's a good reason, you know. So,
is it,
I mean, a lot of them are almost like
making it easier for this committee, whenever, next month or 5 years down the road, is it making it easier for this committee to say no?
easier than that for Malia to support a no. Would be what I would say. It'd be easier for Malia to support the county's position.
If we have this but contrary to public interest. What about number 9? The need of the proposed use.
That's kind of one of these ones that's kind of subjective too, you know, I mean, obviously that's not a very good thing to fight in a court battle, you know, and that because how are you gonna do that, you know, and like the erosion potential, that's almost just a checklist, you know, and that, oh, they got their erosion control plan, they're not in the floodplain, and then, you know, the existing topography, you know, is like vegetative cover, that's almost just a statement, you know, and that the trees are there or they're not, you know.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of good legal facts that to fall back on, is what I'm saying. So, and I don't care, and that you're able to cut it out. I mean, we've been lucky, but we've only, like you say, denied one conditional use, you know, and luckily we weren't challenged. So anyway, I can say that now because the writ is gone.
Public's point of view.
Yeah, I still don't like it, but I could buy into it a whole bunch better if we got rid of the public's point of view.
Carried after interest and run with it.
I still question number 9, but.
So
Always.
Yeah,
That almost goes back to like, you know, rezoning, you know, that surrounding and existing land uses and the need for a proposed use in a comp
So
plan,
can
you
we
know,
strike
so.
that?
Okay, yep. So
Yeah, we can strike it. I mean, actually,
whatever changes that happen aren't gonna happen between now and the public hearing. I mean, I can bring it back a draft, but those changes would happen at the public hearing. So,
Okay.
yep.
Or after the public hearing, after we get their
Yeah,
feedback, we go
After the
through and we can
public hearing,
strike her ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can work it up the document so they can show you that it's gone, you know, and that's so that we
Yeah.
have that prep.
But whatever
technically,
one-
We would be
This
okay
is
with
the-
striking 9.
I think so. I'm thinking I've got this handbook. Zoning handbook. I mean, there's actually a whole page of lists of stuff that could be on there. And I think we've caught most of them anyway, you know.
I could agree to strike number 9. That just, it's awful subjective.
Yeah,
And try to get it down to what. Yeah,
Everybody could have a different opinion on that one.
fine.
No, I meant the public.
Can't think of any reason in that why you'd want to keep that.
Yeah.
So. Good. That's everything on the ordinance. So we
I don't
did,
think any reason why I want to keep 12, but I agreed to it, so.
well, I'm thinking it might take both off.
we filed the petition to do this amendment on February 3rd. The actual notices
March
are.
3rd?
What's
No,
that?
they filed it on February.
We filed the petition on February 3rd, yep, and then we did the notice and that for the March 2nd and that public hearing. And so we're all set for that, so. Yep. I assume we'll get a few, campground, requests like we had last time and that, or notes, comments, but other than that, the draft and that, I will take and have it on the website today then, so.
Okay, so put the draft that we're gonna do and we'll take some of these and maybe just keep that we have notes on.
Okay, any other
I just
comments
keep
on
some of
that?
these, so they asked if we changed stuff. We did, there was pages of changes from before.
Okay, and then in your packet, kind of on a side note, and that is, I received that email in regards to the rural addressing from the post office. And it's something that they're having issues with is our alpha characters. So the A's and the B's and whatnot. We have been working, since 2017 on changing addresses as they come up, and that when they're an issue, then we'll go ahead and rename that street. Just in the last 2 months here and that, we worked with the town of West Sweden because they had ARPA money and they wanted to buy all new fire number signs for everybody in their town. And Chris and the guys up there were nice enough to let us take and review all their addresses, and we're gonna change I think 61 addresses in the town of West Sweden there. And that which isn't, too bad. And I think when we did Bone Lake, we did like 120 or even more than that. So in other words, town of West Sweden's gonna be caught up in that on all their addressing. And then we're replacing those alpha characters as they come. I just wanted to take and show you guys that email so that you knew that it is an issue, and that for our delivery services. So that's all that's for.
Okay.
I was at West Sweden last night, their town board meeting, because it's typically county board night, so I'm never there.
Yeah.
A couple of them went, ooh, 61. Ooh, it seems like a lot. I think they were getting ready for the battle.
A lot of those though, and that were simple ones too, and that were like the actual number didn't change, but going west of Frederick, the County Road W kind of goes like a snake trail there. And in that snake trail area, and that it was just County Road W. So we assigned a gridded number to it for the address and that, but kept County Road W. So it's not like they're gonna take and get their number changed and that. So there was probably 15 or maybe even 20 of them that were on County Road W there, so that won't cause any problems. So, and then the other ones in that were the A's and the B's in 4 or 5 places off from a private driveway,
There's a lot of them around, yeah.
and the A's and the B's, if you think of how much trouble, because we have that, we're an A, and I can't tell you how many times my mail gets delivered to 1383, my neighbor. Or I get his mail. Heck, sometimes they deliver it to 1373A. They don't.
And the deal in that we work out with the towns, or we've been doing with each town, we've done Moraine, Clam Falls, I think we did, and we did Bone Lake. And I believe we did McKinley, so we've done quite a few of our northern ones and that, but they're less population. And that's so they don't have to buy as many signs and that. You start getting into our southern towns and that, and then you're looking at buying 1,200-1,400 signs. That's a lot for a town and that to be able to afford. That's a lot to put them all up, but the county buys the signs and that for the addresses that we change. And the reason why we do that is because one, that then we don't have to take and pay the town to put them up because we've got a cooperative agreement. Because otherwise we pay the town $25 per sign to install it. And right now we're buying signs for $17-$18 and that they can have them here. So that's what it cost us. And we save the $25 because the town's willing to put them up for now. So
I just want to say, you notice the towns that he named off?
Yeah.
District 1. Easy going, easy to work with.
they actually,
Nobody can count over 10, so they
Yeah,
didn't even understand.
exactly.
That's right. There is no number after this.
And they have their own legal too, don't forget that.
That's right.
I will say that like Lorraine and Bone Lake were some of the first two that they can jump on. And that, but they had the addressing issues up there and because of their remoteness and that it's really important because the response times are already a little bit more than what they might be around here. So.
See, Bone Lake is Doug, so, you know, 1 and 2, districts 1 and 2.
And you know what? I think out of all of them that we changed in Bone Lake, I think the town, like I said, it was about 120. I think the town board only heard from one person. So, and most of them were in positive. So, you know. Good.
I heard from one.
All right, there was one that was really ornery about it because he had a special plaque for his address and stuff and yeah, wasn't happy about that.
That's the one, Jason.
Yeah. You know, so.
Nobody likes change.
I know we're gonna be doing one here on Deer Lake, and that on Deer Lake Park. And that, because we've got an address request for a vacant lot on that road. And there's a lot of A's and B's and stuff going up through there. And that, so I'm actually gonna be working on that today. And that's about 30 addresses. I had to
Is
change
that town of Balsam or town of St. Croix?
I was in Croy,
Really?
so.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Jerry might be getting a new
Supervisor Kelly's
address.
At the same time.
It's on what road was it on?
Deer Lake Park. So it's like over by Brost.
Yep. And you said it's about 30?
Third.
So
Well,
will,
we did
So the-
Sunset View Drive on the opposite side by the big log cabin. And that, we did that. I don't know if it was last year or the year before now. And that was 25 or 30. And I mean, everybody understands, you know, and the town kept old Sunset View Drive as, and it had kind of like a historical name on the road. So they've got 2 street signs out there. And then I assume that'll be what they'll do with Deer Lake Park too.
and then
So
did the town, will the town put up the fire signs then?
I'll put up the fire signs, yeah.
I'll bring that up. We have a town board meeting tonight, but I'll bring that up
Yeah.
about how many more are participating and
I had a guy in Somerset.
Yeah, and it is a good use of the ARPA funds and that if they are, you know, willing to do it, you know,
oh
so.
no, hey, look at it. These guys want to buy another grader.
And they don't have to take and spend it, you know, and that's one of the things we're talking with Lincoln too. And that, but like Lincoln's like 1,400 or 1,500 address signs, which is like almost $30,000 for the signs. And that by the time they buy new posts and everything, and then the staff time to go out and do all the locates because of labor nowadays.
Yeah.
And so they're looking at doing a portion of them, you know, a couple hundred at a time or something, so.
Gotta change the whole thing.
Oh, yeah, there's.
That's all I've got, so thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
You gonna be around so I get a permit afterwards?
Yep.
Okay, cool.
No, he's going to lunch.
No, I'm catching up before lunch. Trying to.
Nice.
You want to talk just about environmental services update before we transition into the work plan, or do you want to do that?
Either way, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll just a quick update. We met with the town of Sterling again last month, as you know. Jason gave a really exceptional presentation to the Sterling Town Board about opting into county zoning authority. We met with a town supervisor yesterday to talk about developing a comprehensive land use plan. That's a good practice to have a comp plan as well. So I think we don't really have the capacity to actually facilitate or write a plan like we did back in 08 or 06 when we did 17 of them. Nor do we have the grant at that time. So, but we've been talking to Extension and so they can help with a public participation plan, facilitate meetings, collect public input. And so it's nice to have that partnership with Extension and help the town of Sterling in developing their comp plan as well. I think the rezone conversation, adopting county zoning is on their agenda next Monday. And I offered to come out and speak to them again. So it's sort of a conversation. There's a new supervisor being appointed, I believe, next meeting as well. So Brad, do you have a question?
No, I just must have just put my arm down or something. No.
I know you were interested in that, and so stay tuned. Let's see. Oh, land and water. This has been a while. We've actually updated our shoreland property owner handbook. This is a guide to riparian owners. Talks about all kinds of different things. There's a zoning component, viewing corridor, shoreline restoration best practices. Really nice piece at the end that identifies all your invasive as well as non-invasive. Sometimes they look the same. And so we had not done this since, 2000. We have an updated one. We're going to have Jason proof it as well and disseminate that out there. Our Facebook page is one place to start, as well as getting out to lake associations too. So there's that. If you'd like a copy, I can send you an electronic copy.
We're a center.
Well,
you'd ask him about one of the things that are coming up on the county board agenda, which is just an update on each division's accomplishments over the last 2 years. I did take a stab at it. It's 3 pages, so I need to get it down. Have you seen it, Chris, from our division? You'd asked, and actually our administrator asked to reach out to each chair of our governing committee to get some ideas. You want to hear what we've come up with then, or?
If everybody wants to hear it to see if we missed something.
I think it's going to be on, I think the February or next week's county board. It's everything related to or tied to a resolution. So those policy driven initiatives. And then in March, the division directors will give a brief update on what has been accomplished over the last 2 years. That's correct.
There's quite a bit's went through here. When you go back 2 years. Yeah.
So yeah, I called you yesterday, Kim. You suggested to bring it. We brainstormed some topics.
Yeah, some of the topics. And I said, maybe we should read it off to see
Can you
what it
just,
is.
how about if you send it to us?
Or, okay, yeah.
And then we could look at it and then next meeting, we'll still have time to say, we missed this, we missed that, but we'll have time to look at it at least that way.
Yeah, that's good.
And
I will send that today along with the wildlife damage claim bill too. And I also will send you
I tried to remember, go back 2 years. Holy man, I was going back 1 year.
I'll also send you the February 28th PTAG agenda.
Yeah, we should see what changed on that.
I think that was
Because I know I go back and look at the PTAG minutes, I'll look through the minutes and stuff, but there isn't a lot of information, like you can't see I don't know where they have their bylaws. I've never seen that. It's not,
well, that's great you brought that up because that's actually one of the topic items for the next meeting is we have to look at those bylaws. Again, reinforce their responsibilities to share with the broader community what's happening.
That might be under us because we're the ones who kind of set that up, didn't we?
Yes, originally that was what, a year
Might have
and
to
a
look
half
back. It
ago.
might be under that resolution. Set up.
One thing we have to,
I looked
It's
at,
none of that
it
one.
talks about
Okay.
the bylaws, but it doesn't.
Doesn't say what
there's
they
no-
are.
No, it doesn't say
Oh,
what they are.
okay.
That's why I had my questions earlier was, because that was just about the time that started when I came on the board, but what was the long-term intent of PTAG? You know, was it just to do this comprehensive trail network, get through that, and then they're done?
That
Or,
was the enabling resolution.
It
That-
started to see if it would work, yeah.
but then is it, now
It
that's
sunsetted,
done,
yeah.
where does it go? You know, what happens now with PTAG?
That's what we're kind of looking
Right,
at. Do we
that's
keep
a
it
great
going or not?
question.
Yeah.
That resolution, I think it's 1820,
Yeah.
spells out, you know, a lot of the roles of PTAG and the intent. And that was the intent, to help develop a comprehensive trail network plan.
But
Which
it lists, because I just looked through that again too, it also lists, I don't have it up right
outdoor
now.
rec plan as well.
It also lists, it sounds like it's a forever thing.
It's
based on
completely,
that
it's completely up to you if you want to, you know, just terminate or end that advisory group. Like I mentioned earlier, there's 3 pending projects, the 15 in the plan that still require more input from PTAG. So we got to get through that. We have an idea on how to tackle that. And we get more qualitative input.
And I'm not saying one way or another. Yeah, I'm just asking, what was the original intent? Have we satisfied that? Now, what's next with PTAG? Is it, are we finding that PTAG as a group is something we want to keep longer term? Is changed? You know, what will they look like going forward?
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think, there's no subcommittee that's ever established by the board. I don't think it's ever been meant to last forever. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got that broad of authority, you're the county board in the scheme of things. You know, I mean,
It's more to keep the user groups together for a while here till some of this other stuff settles out.
Yeah.
kind of Is what it is. It's more,
Well,
it gets out to more people. I mean, they always say we don't give them enough notice and all this, and it's at 6, 8 meetings and 5 different committees, and they still come in and say, we didn't see it. So, I mean, I don't know what else we can do.
Right.
Yeah,
You know.
people just don't pay attention until they hear through word of mouth that,
Yeah.
oh gee, maybe I
Okay. That's something they'll get to discuss at their meeting.
like.
Well, that's what we were going to talk
Justify
it
why they want to
through.
meet together.
Right, if there is a need or any
If there's a need
interest.
or If there isn't, then we.
I mean, there's advantages and disadvantages. There's other special committees out there that are, you know, it's tough. I mean, it's another committee we have to manage.
Yeah.
Sometimes committees just go on and on. And they just meet just to meet.
Yeah.
We've all experienced that, you know. And who knows, we might have emerging trail or park issues down the road that it'd be helpful to deflect or forward on to outside body for their consideration rather than using your time. I mean, those are all policy decisions and.
But they can always be formed again too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
if they were to be disbanded at some point, they can always be
Right back and.
brought back down the road as a different committee.
What was that resolution number?
1820.
1820. Okay, here it was. Because what I had read today when I looked at this earlier was it talks about the supervisor's duties, provide review and provide recommendations on the annual operations and maintenance of the Polk County Parks and Trails. Review, research, and provide recommendations on park and trail-based issues. And will serve as the main advisory group to the full county board or ES committee when approached for trail and park-related activities and development. It doesn't talk about ever, it just talks about it going on. It doesn't say, you know, this is,
Sunset in that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I was planning, we've revised the agenda. I'm surprised it's not out, but anyway, I'll share the agenda with you. We were going to attach, this was again for PTAG, we're going to attach the bylaws. So when I send that out, or Tim sends that out, I'll include the bylaws.
Okay, so that'll help.
Chair, we can transition to 14A.
Yes.
Okay. Well, as you
Yes.
know, we'll have a public hearing for amendments to the code of ordinances regarding campgrounds, those easement restrictions and the density requirements. I'll have Mark will be here twice in March. As you noticed, the timber sale awards will be March 16th or March 2nd. We'll have a better understanding of Burnett County's perspective on
On that
the
trail.
loop,
part,
yeah. And we can also talk about the ATV loop updates, whether Mark does that or Mo.
Right.
Rod, yeah. We'll have Tim back. As you know, we're going out to do some site visits this week on the trail network plan. We will provide an update about the outcomes of the PTAG meeting on February 28th. That's okay. And yeah, the bids will be closed for the intensive ATV UTV park proposals. So we'll bring that forward as mentioned earlier. So that along with the bids for the Atlas and Clam Falls
Dam stuff.
dam stuff.
So we'll have an update on the Stour too, should be done then, huh? At the end of what,
No,
this
I would-
week? We don't even know. It'll be
We've
done
got
then.
a team of folks there testifying today.
Testifying today. Okay.
So there's that. According to our work plan, Eric can do the cover crop inventory, keep a brief presentation there. And Mark can also do the forestry annual reports. We can either do that the 2nd or the 16th.
He probably just hands that to us.
So that isn't, like Mark's presentation isn't real long there.
No, I don't think
Well,
so.
let's put him on the 2nd, and if the public hearing runs long, we can just kick him to
Yeah.
the 2nd.
But we can get, because he needs that approved by motion for his salary. So I mean, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, we do have to let's go through it. We should.
We'll see Mark regarding Burnett County's position in a forestry annual report. It transitions into the work plan, which is a great suggestion. Notice the months that are in blue. That's for considering a season for ordinance amendments, rewrites.
Yes, that's
That's
something.
the low peak season for zoning.
Okay.
And that can help their staff focus on their jobs. And then
Yeah.
if any outsider group, again, using agritourism as an example, were to come in April, we would just defer later.
Defer to later. What do we think? October or November to start that?
Look at November, December, January.
Yeah,
November,
I would-
December, those 3 months.
I would think November, because then the summer season is done.
Pretty much, yeah.
You know, and I mean, realistically, I mean, Bob, could it not be kind of a slow process at the start of, here's what we've got? I mean, because I look at it as though if we start in November, we've really got until March past something that would affect
True.
the next summer again, so that,
Yeah.
you know, the lake shore owners know, okay, here's what changes are, or, you know.
Well, they know when we're looking at it and not just every month. If there's some.
Right.
Here, 99% of it's going to be this time of year.
Yeah.
Unless something really comes up. Yeah.
I think that's always out there. If something big comes up, Jason come and said,
Yeah.
all right, here's what we just missed 2 months ago. We got to go do it. Or,
Yeah.
you know, and state changes don't matter. They just,
They come and we have to change it.
yeah, they are what they are.
Okay.
We're okay with that?
Yeah, I'm thinking
November?
to do that, yeah, to help staff everybody to take the middle of the year and kind of we can get all this other stuff.
Well, and even, look at like the guy that wanted to park his trailer at the lake. I mean, we spent 2.5 months working on it. And then it wasn't gonna work for him anyway, and it just,
He didn't have what he said. He had the regular travel trailer. He didn't have a modular house.
What?
No, just water?
He didn't even know what he had for real.
Didn't you just leave?
That's what we'll advise people. That the ordinance amendment would have to wait until November.
Yes, unless there's something real pending or something, I mean, then you can always come and tell us too, okay, here's what's coming, people are wild about it or something. But I think it would make more sense that let's keep it at those times.
But the only, outcry I could hear about that is possibly the lake people, like we've heard at other public hearings where they say, well, you're not doing it during the summer months when we're up here.
they can, I mean, now that we Zoom,
And all the Zoom.
they can come in on the TV screen,
Yeah,
so we've,
we pretty much not eliminated anybody now with Zoom.
So I think that's one way that you can take and tell people that.
Yeah. Well, I think they've gotten it better.
and I think just the fact of being able to stretch it out over some time. So it's like, here's what we're gonna do in November, and, maybe we take a couple months slow where somebody's got ideas, they can get them to Jason, and in time, I think it'll catch on.
Well, I think so, but I mean, they got all year to put it in and think about it too. Not just, okay, next month, boom, we gotta do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like that guy, we gotta change the trailers, we gotta do this, and all of a sudden, here we sit.
Yeah, I mean, even the farm tourism, it was,
They were just in
3,
such
4
a huge
meetings that we
cheer.
talked about it, and then poof, they're gone.
Yeah.
Then they walk away and say it's no big deal, so, yeah. It just,
Well, it is until the season comes around and then it's gonna be hot.
well, and
again.
now we have one covered, it covers them all.
Yeah.
So instead of being site specific to things like that, we had enough time to finally go, hey, we're not doing it for one little group. Now it's for everybody here.
Right.
Work with it.
We stayed on task and made provisions, or you all
Yeah.
did, so yeah. It's available for them now.
Yeah, I mean, and it kind of was before anyway. It's just
Take it or leave it.
yeah, I mean, it's in there, so. Okay,
Go for it.
oh, just a second.
I make a
Did you want to do
motion.
something to the whole committee or not? Or just afterwards?
No.
Okay,
No.
all right.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
I.
So what time you gonna be at free?